Welcome, everyone, to the 2022 Federal Highway Administration and Georgia DOT LAP Symposium. Today is March 23rd. It's 2022. I am Lillian Jackson. I'm a member of the Jacobs consultant team that is helping Gdot deliver the LAP PDP program. And we're glad to see you this morning. You'll meet other members of the team and the Gdot staff and FHWA staff in just a little bit. My assignment today is to do some housekeeping rules. First, of course, please keep your mics muted. That kind of minimizes distractions for presenters and for participants as well. Secondly, as much as we love seeing your smiling faces, if you would please turn your cameras off during presentations. That kind of eliminates the distractions also for participants. We love seeing you. We're glad you're here. But unless you're presenting, if you could turn your cameras off, that would be fabulous. I appreciate it. We are recording this session. Gdot is doing that for us. So shout out to the Gdot AV team, Brian Stocks in particular. We're doing it in 2 different sessions. So you have an invitation for the morning session, which is where we are, and then the afternoon session. So he's recording it 2 different sessions so that it can be posted and held for posterity on the Gdot website. If you have questions of presenters, we ask that you please wait until the end of their presentations. You can put questions in the chat or raise your hand, and as time permits, I will try to get to as many of those questions as possible. Depending on our time, we hope to show you some examples of project photos completed by LAP certified local agencies. We hope that these photos will help you, inspire you to continue your LAP training and certification. And they're just to show you examples of what can be done. I think someone has their mic on. Could you please turn your mic off? Thank you. And we hope that you will ask questions. Our presenters are here for you. And if we don't get a whole lot of questions, you get to sit through my list of trivia questions. So if you don't want to hear my corny trivia questions, please ask questions of the presenters. We encourage that. Just so you know, we're going to take a break depending on how long the presentations go and questions and answers. We're going to take a break about 10:30, 10:40, 15-minute break. And then, of course, we'll break the session right at 12 o'clock so you can have lunch from 12 to 1. And now it's my privilege to present our opening remarks for the symposium. We'll have Malik Alkush, who is the LAP coordinator for Gdot. But first, we have Ms. Neosha Lawton, the local program coordinator and realty officer for Federal Highway Administration, FHWA.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Neosha Lawhorn. I am with Georgia Division of Federal Highway Administration. And on behalf of FHWA...
Josh, I have found the last ticket that I did on the back.
Someone has their mic open, please. Turn it off, please. Thank you.
And on behalf of FHWA and Gdot, I would like to welcome you to our first LAP Symposium. The purpose of today's symposium is to provide you with updates about the LAP program, and it is also an opportunity for us to get feedback from you on ways that we can improve the program and make it even better. As you know, over the past several years, we've made a lot of changes to the program. In 2014, we conducted our first review of the LAP program from inception to completion, and in that review, we found several issues of non-compliance. Every 3 years, we conduct a review, and we came back in 2017 and looked at the program, and we noticed that the program had improved significantly due to changes in training, bringing on new classes, updating the certification process, working more closely with locals to create a one-stop shop for the application process, and providing more FAQs and information about the LAP process overall. And in making those changes and seeing those significant changes, in 2018, Gdot decided to take the program to the next level and bring on the consulting team of Jacobs, which you'll hear from today. We're hoping that you get a lot out of this symposium and all the updates that we have to provide. I am going to turn it over to Malik Alkush at Gdot, the LPA coordinator. It's on you, Malik. You're on mute.
Sorry about that. Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Neosha. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the first annual LAP Symposium. My name is Malik Alkush, and I am the Local Administered Project, commonly called LAP Coordinator for the Georgia Department of Transportation. As you heard Ms. Longhorn say from the Federal Highway Administration, this program started way back in 2014. At that particular time, I was brought on board, and Gdot had its first LAP coordinator for the program. And as you've heard, the program has taken off quite significantly since 2014, and we're doing some very robust things that we're very excited about today in this symposium. I am representing Mr. Bobby Hilliard, who is my boss, and he is our administrator for the Office of Program Control. It is this office where the Local Administered Project LAP program resides, and local public agencies become LAP certified to let a local project with federal funding. In our program, you learned to administer the federal aid program for local-led projects, which locals are the subrecipient of those federal funds. Our office coordinates and works closely with Ms. Kimberly Nesbitt, who is the State Program Delivery Administrator for the Office of Program Delivery. That office is responsible for project development and project delivery throughout the entire state. In January of 2022 alone, Gdot awarded projects worth more than $173 million. Georgia is the 10th largest transportation network in the country. So successful project delivery in Georgia means focus in 3 key areas. Number 1, managing the scope, schedule, budget of projects. You'll hear that a lot, scope, schedule, budget, if you deal with the Office of Program Delivery. 2, coordinating with external stakeholders, which means state and federal agencies. And number 3, very important, informing local public agencies about our project delivery requirements and processes through the plan development process, which we know as PDP, and the Local Administered Project, which we know as the LAP. These are 2 of the several trainings that we offer to keep the local public agencies informed. In fiscal year 2021, Gdot awarded 31 local-led projects statewide, valued at more than $69 million. So clearly, the work that you do in your cities, counties, and MPOs throughout Gdot's 7 districts is very important to the achievement of the department's goals, our delivery goals. More importantly, with each and every project that you deliver, you expand access and mobility throughout the state with new and improved multimodal commercial, leisure, and commuter travel options. This we strive for in the state of Georgia. We are pleased that you have joined us for this symposium today. During the day, you'll hear from Gdot's LAP consultant team, which is Jacobs Engineering Group, that has handled the LAP program and its operations and training since the fall of 2019. Our LAP consultant team is led by Ms. Janice Gibson, who is our LAP program manager. We hope that this is an opportunity to inform and inspire each and every one of you for continued success in the LAP program. Thank you. I'll turn it over to our moderator, Ms. Lillian Jackson.
Thank you, Malik. And I'm going to turn it back over to Neosha, who's going to do her presentation from Federal Highways.
So good morning, everyone. Again, as you know, this is the Federal Highway and Gdot LAP Symposium. Next slide. And just to reintroduce myself, I am Neosha Lawhorn, the Local Programs Coordinator and Realty Officer for the Georgia Division Office of Federal Highway. Next slide. So a little bit about Federal Highway. I know that most of you are very familiar with us, but just to give you an overview of Federal Highway Administration's role in the local program, we actually retain the overall responsibility for all aspects of the federal aid program. We provide technical guidance to Gdot for administering the federal aid program. We also conduct reviews and inspections as well. Next slide. So in some of the ways that we provide oversight for the program is by conducting audits. I kind of mentioned in my opening about the FHWA inception to completion review or audit. We conduct that every 3 years. It is a triannual review. That is when we look at the complete project process and cycle. We look at every phase and aspect of the project. The goal of these reviews is to really help you to better administer your federal aid dollars, to find where there's areas of weaknesses in the program, what improvements we can make to help administer the program better. We also do, you also might see us out in doing these compliance assessment reviews, also known as the Compliance Assessment Program, CAP. That is actually out of our headquarters office. They're actually not going to be conducting them in 2022, but our headquarters office conducts these reviews. They select about 52 projects for the state of Georgia, and we go out and do those.
Jenny, have you find out anything about the iPad?
Oh, if you can mute that mic, Lillian, there's a mute option. We conduct about 52 of these reviews in Georgia. Local projects might be included in those reviews as well. So you'll see Federal Highway in that capacity. We also do spot checks and audits. We work very closely with Gdot in doing audits of the local program. And once again, our goal of these reviews is to help you along the process. Next slide. So in coming to this symposium, we sent out a couple of surveys, which you guys did receive, about questions, concerns about the program, or reoccurring issues. So the goal of the symposium is, throughout the symposium, we will hear us try and address some of those concerns or issues or questions. One of the things that came up was FTA and FHWA. What are our difference? Yes, we are sister agencies. We are under the umbrella of the United States Department of Transportation, but we function in different ways. Federal Highway Administration, we are a federal aid program. It is a reimbursable program. So that's one of the keys. It's a reimbursable program that provides financial and technical assistance to state and local governments. We have a division office structure, and our division offices provide stewardship and oversight of the construction, maintenance, and preservation of the nation's highways, bridges, and tunnels. Then FTA, which is the Federal Transit Administration. It is a grant program. FTA provides grants to local public transit agencies, including buses, subways, light rail, commuter, and trolleys and ferries. They have a regional structure to their offices. And so FTA, what they do is they conduct oversight of activities that ensure recipients of grants use the funds in a manner consistent with their intended purpose and compliance with regulatory and statutory requirements. So the question comes up about LAP certification with transit agencies. In order to receive these funds, there needs to be an agreement with a municipality that has the ability to be LAP certified. So from Federal Highway's perspective, we provide the oversight for the federal highway aid program. So we are providing LAP certification for that program only. So the transit agencies do not have the ability to be LAP certified. Next slide. As I mentioned, Federal Highway has the division office structure. We have division offices generally located in the capital cities. We also have offices in Puerto Rico and Guam. Our headquarters is in Washington, D.C. Then as you see, the state of Georgia, our office is located here in Atlanta for the state of Georgia. Next slide. And I mentioned that FTA has a regional office format. Georgia is located in Region 4 for FTA, and that office is in Atlanta as well. Next slide. So many of you have heard on the news about our new transportation bill. There are many smart people in Washington that are helping us navigate this process. As you can imagine, there are lots of pages, there's lots of policy and regulations to go through. There are several key processes that once we get a new bill, which is our new bill is the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law, short for bill. It has to go through several steps and stages. I'm not going to bore you with all the stages that we have to go through, but I will tell you the current stage that we're in is highlighted in yellow. We are in the apportionment stage, which means that we are waiting for the distribution of funds to the states as prescribed by statutory formula, which in short means we're waiting for all state DOTs to know them. All states to know the amount of funding that we receive from the transportation bill. Next slide. So out of this bill, the bill will be providing highway programming funds for 5 years, fiscal year 2022 through fiscal year 2026. We have $350 billion for highway programs. Out of those opportunities, one of the things that I want to highlight, there's going to be many things coming out of this transportation bill, but one of the things is there's going to be a lot more opportunities for local governments and non-traditional entities to have access to these federal funds. Next slide. So what does that mean for Georgia? We know that we're going to potentially have these funds. We don't know the amount, but we do know that Georgia is anticipating several discretionary grants to be awarded each year. We anticipate more funding for these grant programs that will go to local agencies and state DOTs. So my advice to you as a local government would be take advantage of the training, especially the procurement training. Take advantage of the overall local government training so that you can be well versed in the federal aid process and have an understanding how you can administer and help your local government administer these funds. Next slide. In this funding, there is going to be the possibility of direct funds to locals. So we'll talk about what it means to receive Gdot funds and what it means to receive direct fund to locals. So when you receive Gdot funds, they are the direct recipient of federal funds in normal circumstances. So Georgia Department of Transportation provides the oversight of the local project via an agreement with each individual local agency. And as part of that, you are required to be LAP certified and you will have to attend all 5 of Gdot's trainings. And my advice to you that is at this time, we don't have a determination of how the direct funds will be administered, but we will provide more information on that. But my advice to you is to go ahead and take those trainings as they become available so that you are well versed in the process. But when you receive direct funds, that means direct funds from federal highway, these are direct federal aid funds, the local agency will require oversight from federal highway from inception to completion of the project. So that means you'll be working directly with federal highway from the beginning to the end of your project cycle. Next slide. There is going to be a lot more information coming out, but I want to provide you with some resources that can be available to you now. This is a link. The first link is to our FHWA Federal Highway Administration website. And then we also have a link to the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law, which is a quick FAQ about the bill and some of the facts about it. Then we have what is our federal aid essentials. And anybody that's attended any of our LAP classes, they know about the federal aid essentials, which are quick, short videos that cover every phase of the transportation project. They give you a good overview of federal aid. Next slide. I did see a couple of questions pop up in the chat pod. If Lillian would mind reading those to me or someone can read them to me, and then I will answer any other questions that you guys have as well.
Yes, there is a question in the chat. It says, how can locals get on a notification list when IIGA funds opportunities open up?
The short answer is we don't have a mechanism for that yet, but I can take that definitely back to the group and see if there's some way to have a notification list or notifications when those funds are available. But I will tell you that we will be working very closely with Janice and Malik and their team as these funds, and also Kim Nesbitt's team, as these funds come available, because they will probably be coming out in different times. I don't expect there to be this big flow of funds all at once. So we will make sure that that information is available. And then Dan Hinton he is our Deputy Division Administrator, just put a link in the chat for anybody who wants to see information about grants and the timing of the cycle of that. Thank you, Dan. Did we have any other questions? Oh, Dan, go ahead.
Yeah, sorry about that, Neosha. I jumped the gun a little bit, but yesterday it was announced infra grants, mega grants, which are large projects between over 100 million, and the Rural Surface Transportation Grant Program were posted on grants.gov. So those were listed on that that link that I just sent. They closed May 23rd.
Thank you, Dan. Did anyone else have any other questions?
Yeah, can we ask question verbally?
Oh, go ahead, yes.
Yeah, so I'm with Augusta, Georgia, city and county. Question I have, really be helpful if there is like another federal grants, sometimes they have pre-submittal conference call that help to understand about, especially for the grants, what exactly, in this case, federal highway will be expecting. So we just focus on those lines instead of rethinking what makes sense and submitting it and then not qualifying it. Is something that's something you all thinking? Or if not, I think that's something need to think about, because that will help quite a bit for the local to really understand how to get access to these dollars there, because otherwise our concern is that with smaller cities will not be able to really tap into the dollar, because the larger cities like Atlanta may have more opportunity than Augusta because of the not having enough information.
Dan, did you have a comment to that question?
Yeah, I'm going to post, we do have some resources on the RAISE grant program where we have a lot of videos on how to prepare the applications and how to do the benefit costs. I'm going to post that right now. But oh, it looks like somebody already did.
Anne-Marie Day, planning team leader for Federal Highway,
so,
some information as well.
Right. So our headquarters office is working on a lot of, technical resources to provide the locals, and we'll be providing them on our website for, information on how to apply for the grants, how to work through the process. And there's a lot of different videos on there to work through. So, and if, we, typically we don't, from the Federal Highway, don't provide the assistance for preparing the grants, but we can, provide any type of assistance we can, if you ask us. But, typically it's going to come through our headquarters and these technical resources that we're going to provide. I think I saw a question in there also about, I think Charles asked about dealing directly with federal highways. I think, as Neosha said, it's if the grant is going directly to the locals, then yes, you would be dealing with federal highways. I guess there is, if you coordinate with Gdot, there's an opportunity that Gdot may assist you in administering that project, but it would have to be a decision that Gdot makes based on their resources and their priorities. So if it's an agreement between Gdot and the local, Gdot may agree to administer it. If Gdot doesn't want to administer it, then yes, you would be dealing directly with federal highways on that grant.
did anyone, and I failed to mention there are several folks from Federal Highway on the line as well. So there could be opportunity to ask questions about other program areas as well. Does anyone else have any other questions for me or Federal Highway?
I
Well,
think this is a great opportunity for you all to get your questions in. This is a huge bill coming down the pike with lots of opportunities for you and your local communities.
Well, as Lillian mentioned, that there are going to be a lot of opportunities coming out of this transportation bill. We will be around, and you can put your questions in the chat, or you can, let's see, next slide. Is my email on here, Alex? I can't remember if it's on here. My email address, let's see, it's not on there, but I can provide my email address in the chat if questions do come up as well. So thank you. Oh, go ahead.
I do have one question.
Oh,
This is Malik again from Augusta.
okay.
Since there will be a lot of opportunities and to maximize use of these dollars to go to the actual project, and if we are LAP certified and have all the required training and maybe some extra, and will we be able, right now, at least, the way our understanding is that most of the time we have to use the third party to do a lot of work. For example, right away, detail estimate, all of the things. But the question really I have is if we have staff with the right certification training, or, at par with the third party, there should be opportunity for local to use in-house resources to save the money and then put into actual construction or something. Can someone give a little bit more insight? Is that the possibility? Or, I may not be clear 100%, but that's what my understanding right now is, that we have to use third party to get most of the reports generated and submitted and all that stuff, including like detailed right-of-way estimate, all of that stuff.
I don't know if someone else wants to jump in and answer that question, but
I'll try, Hamid. How you doing? This is Malik. If I understand your question, I think you're reaching for that in order to be competitive, that the smaller local governments have to use consultants to assist them with some of the administrative work. So that you can save those funds, use in-house resources? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, that's what. Yeah, like, if we have the resources and we have a certified staff, they are capable of delivering the same service. Then, my understanding is still we cannot use our staff. We have to use the third party to do it. So
yeah, the only issue with that is that, Gdot, if you're receiving federal funds, Gdot does not pay for administrative costs. So it would be expected that you would use your own resources to assist you with any part of doing that particular grant, or use your own in-house services. But the Federal Highway Administration and Gdot, of course, we don't pay for that particular service.
So we can create, let's pick up the easy one, the right-of-way acquisition and creating a detailed estimate and negotiation and all that. So if we have the ability to do that in-house, are we allowed to do that or no?
I don't want to bog down the conversation when you start talking about procurement and locally administered funds and federal highway funds. That is very complex. I would prefer that we have that conversation one-on-one and we talk about project specifics, because it's very challenging to give a blanket answer for project questions, because there could be things that I'm missing or not aware of about the project. And to answer that without the information, I don't think that would be good for the good of the group. So for that particular question, we can have a sidebar and talk about it one-on-one so we don't bog down everybody else's time as well, if that works for you.
Yeah, understood. Excellent. Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you, Hamid.
Okay.
There is one other question in the chat, which is similar, I think. They're asking, will the guidelines for procurement be different between Gdot and FHWA?
Well, for any federal funds, you're always going to have to be in compliance with all federal guidelines when it comes to procurement. That is the short answer to that question. So that will not change when it comes to the administration of federal dollars.
All right, we thank you, Neosha, for that presentation, and Dan for all your information, and everyone else who contributed. Thank you all for your questions. Let's move to our next presenter, Ms. Kimberly Nesbitt, who is the Georgia DOT State Program Delivery Administrator. And there she is.
Good morning, everyone. As Ms. Lillian stated, I am Kimberly Nesbitt. I am the Program Delivery Administrator for the Georgia Department of Transportation. And as part of that role, project managers who you are working with to deliver your projects are assigned to this office. Our full charge and responsibility is to ensure that you are compliant with federal guidelines in order to successfully deliver your project on scope, schedule, and budget as stated before. Background on my career here with Gdot. I started with Gdot in 1999 as a designer out of college with a CET degree, and I also did contract negotiations for a year. However, I have been active in program and project management delivery since 2005. So I'm very familiar with locals' challenges as it relates to scoping, delivery, risk assessment, and successfully delivering a project to their citizens and to the driving public of Georgia. So we're going to start off by going over the symposium questions. So I noticed there were several bucketed questions or issues that we need to address. And I want to be able to say that the main one we noticed was contracts. There were several concerns about our contract process, how long it takes to get a contract executed, and what improvements our office and Gdot have administered or executed in order to help you successfully deliver your projects. So our system for contracts is called Contract Authorization Tracking System, abbreviated as CATS. Those who have been doing or being issued federal and state funded projects, we do actually use this system for 100, what we call HB 170 funded projects, is an electronic system. And the reason why we went electronic is because previously we were having issues with contracts being lost in the mail, being sent to districts, and not being executed in a timely fashion. So this actually has allowed us to track your contract electronically. This is a system that the local can access and the Gdot rep can access to ensure all items are executed and then sent back to the consultant through an email notification. So that includes our PFAs, which are project framework agreements, that are contracts to reimburse the locals for PE funds, right-of-way agreements, and our construction agreements. The system actually is automated for a reason, and that is to create a purchase order. You'll note there is a link to the training video on how to do this. I actually will include that in the chat. The local charge and whomever the local assigns to execute those agreements should actually view the video to ensure they're familiar with the process. That process actually allows you to track, as I stated, your progress and also allows for invoice payments. The manual for CMIS, which is our way of paying our invoices, is done also electronically. We received a lot of questions and concerns about invoices being lost and not being paid in a timely fashion. So Georgia Department of Transportation is actually charged with ensuring that locals are paid from the time they submit their invoice and it is approved, 10 business days for approval. The hard copy way did not allow us to track that successfully, but now that we are doing this electronically, we've seen an actual improvement in the duration of over 300% in order to pay locals in a timely fashion. And the manual for that is actually in the link here, and I will be providing that in the chat for further research. As stated before, it is very important that the locals charge and whoever's responsible for administering the project and took the classes should become familiar with these videos and manuals to ensure you are properly receiving documents to proceed with your project. And as always, your assigned Gdot PM is a resource and can be contacted if you have questions or concerns. So our symposium survey responses continued. Another set of concerns and questions was the P6 schedule. So your P6 schedule is actually created based on the project type. This is essentially a standard duration. We have had locals tell us, well, I was awarded a project and we promised the citizens or our representatives we would deliver it in a certain time frame. Please understand that there are certain things that cannot be decreased or taken out of your schedule in order for you and your local charge to deliver that project. So let me explain. So when you are hiring a consultant, that consultant is approved for area class codes based off of their experience. Roadway design, traffic and design, and environmental. It is very important that the local understand when they're hiring their consultant that certain things such as survey seasons are set. If you miss that survey season, let's say you have a Astor plant, you missed the survey season, you missed it till the next year. Or if you need traffic counts must be done while school is open. We actually have a traffic manual for that. So the summer or when school is out, those counts would not be accepted. And or mapping. If you have a larger project and you're going to use mapping or LiDAR or what have you for your survey, there are also seasons for that. So whoever your design consultant is or your sub-consultant should be able to walk you through that process. Gdot and other agencies and review and durations and recovery cannot be reduced. I know we can work with you to try to minimize what we call resubmittals, but it's very important that locals understand those are standard durations with our Office of Environmental Services or with SHPO and FHWA, and those cannot be truncated. So please be very aware of all these essential items to develop your schedule. And what we at Gdot have learned, because we also have to deliver projects, is there are certain things that will help you be more successful in delivering your project on scope, schedule, and budget. So what we always tell our PMs is please ensure to minimize, to ensure your project scope includes all required items. So for example, cost components with federal, or what we call negotiate to cost, is not allowed by CFR. We have had concerns and issues with negotiation based on price. Because there is negotiation based on price, there may have been some items that are required or PDP in order to, one, get your project delivered, and two, to get your environmental document approved. Make sure you understand the full scope of work that is needed in order to deliver your project to be successful and to ensure you authorize your funds within the program fiscal year. The other thing I would like to emphasize, mainly for our Office of Environmental Services and for our Office of Bridge Design, is quality. The quality of your deliverable or your consultant's deliverable ensures that you will not have multiple submittals. When you do have multiple submittals, you will be put in the queue with every other item that was in review. This includes our own projects. So we are here in Office of Program Delivery have projects where if quality is an issue, you have to go to the back of the line. So it's very important that you ensure your consultants are giving you a quality deliverable and to ensure you don't lengthen your project schedule. Next slide, please. So another bucket of questions or what I call grouping of questions we had was cost estimates and programming concerns. I want to be very thorough in my explanation to the best of my ability to help locals understand costing. When a local applies for a project through ARC, an NPO, or the Office of Planning, your approval at that time is set up based off of programming costs for PE, right-of-way, utilities, and construction. Those are called program costs and essentially will follow you through the life of your project if you do not go back to the original program manager or entity to increase that cap. So the question becomes, why are we required to submit cost estimates every year? Cost estimates are required to ensure we are compliant with STIP balancing. So we have to show, one, how much the true full cost of the project will be and who all entities are responsible for contributing funds to that project, even the local. So when you're submitting your cost estimate, we essentially are updating our program to reflect that cost. And that is done at after the concept report is approved. So as stated before, we update TPRO, and that amount, if it is not increased, will be the local share. So PMs should be informing locals when costs go up. They need to request that their funds, if possible, be increased. Mind you, if it is through an NPO or ARC, that may be limited to the time they have call for projects, but it is important that you understand that you must either be able to cover the cost yourself or be able to increase the participation either by Georgia Department of Transportation or through your NPO. Next slide, please. Staff assignments. A concern for locals is just the experience of our staff, the turnover of the staff in our office, and we understand, but our office has the same plight basically every local has. For program delivery, we have 1,000 active projects statewide. Most of our PMs have anywhere between 10 to 20 projects depending on their program. And because of that, they're balancing those projects with they're responsible for delivering and the locals project. So if there's a situation where you need an answer and it is not being addressed, we have an escalation process. We keep our organizational chart, our org chart, up to date. And the locals' next contact is the district program manager. If you have a project that is being administered through what we call our district capital program PMs, you'll notice we have those listed here, Marshall Troop, but we also have Atlas. The program manager for Atlas is Mr. Mark Lawing, who is on the line. And if you need your issue addressed and it has not been successfully, you can escalate. Our PMs are responsible for ensuring they have a monthly meeting with all locals to go over their project to ensure they are successfully moving their project along, and all issues or concerns or action items are on the forefront and to ensure the project successfully moves along. Next slide, please. One of the questions that they had was about project management's roles and responsibilities. And if you've attended our PDP class and seen our flow charts, they are very busy, and we understand that it can be a lot for a local to take in. But what we have here is LAP process overview, which gives a summary breakdown of the role of the Gdot PM and the local PM. Could you please click on the PDF link in the presentation? I'd like to expand the presentation so they can see it. It's the PDF on the bottom right side. If not, I'll do my best. I'm assuming everybody can view this, but let's just do a brief overview. So as stated before, for your number one OFM planning, the local goes to or submits an application for funds, and that is through that NPO or STIP. That is our programming phase of the project or process. And through that, you have your project agreements. After you have been informed a project is been awarded to the local. I need to emphasize, after you've been informed a project has been awarded, we still have to go through a process here where the project is programmed. We do our board revision. It is put into the STIP, and then it is assigned to Office of Program Delivery. I know there's been a couple of times where locals have said, hey, I've been informed, I've been awarded a project, I need a project manager. We will keep an eye on it, but we essentially cannot assign a PM until it is formally assigned to our office. After it is assigned to our office, the project manager is assigned. We do a funding request, which is called a 1625. And once the funds are appropriated, we're able to do your project framework agreement, or in lieu of letter if there are no funds that will be reimbursed to the local. For step 3, we have our procurement and consultant services. Now, this is kind of nebulous because with some locals, they've already done their procurement. They may have an on-call contract that they wish to utilize that basically follows the quality selection process. So you are allowed to do that if you did properly follow the process, or they must go ahead and go through their commission or their board to get a contract on board. In some instances, locals like to wait until the PFA is executed before they do this. So mind you, if you do wait, this may end up delaying your funding year, which means it would have to be shifted if the programming manager or ARC or NPO agrees. We are here to provide guidance when needed on scoping, aids if needed on what should be in your task order, or even recommendations of contract types. For example, you have the ability, if your local procurement plan allows, to have a what we call master contract with task orders or cost plus fixed fee. We noticed Gdot, well, what we did in 2007 is we actually don't do cost plus fixed fee contracts anymore because you have to negotiate a contract from concept to letting, which can be very hard to do and actually allows for a lot of supplemental agreements. So what we end up doing is doing a master contract, and then we issue task orders as needed once we get to a certain phase in the process. 4, you have your plan development process, what we call your pre-construction, construction project coordination, environmental and utilities. This is spelled out with your cost estimates as required, developing your concept report, and developing your plan set. You'll notice that there are certain things and deliverables and coordination that is needed outside of just developing your plans, as shown in the middle column for 4, which is things like railroad coordination, surveys, utilities, and environmental. So make sure your consultant team has all the necessary area class codes and scope in order to successfully deliver the project. And then, of course, your right-of-way plans and your right-of-way authorization. 5, we have the construction authorization after final plans are completed, which allows us to then authorize construction funds, give you the NTP to bid, and then successfully award your project. And then we will come back to this slide on the construction side, because I want to be able to successfully tell you in pre-construction how we get to that point in the schedule. So the other item are impacts to your project schedules and costs. This has been a major issue for locals and for Gdot projects. What we notice more often than not is, as stated before, all scoping items have not been properly accounted for. Under programming of your phases, Gdot, we have the same issue, and we've been working very hard to ensure we have better costs, so that costs aren't increased and then delay the project. Not understanding that your A&E consultant may not have a working knowledge of the Gdot process. Your design consultant is pre-qualified based off of the area class code they were awarded. The PDP process and what we call the administrative side of the process is not something that a lot of consultants know. Therefore, Gdot has provided LAP and PDP training to consultants to help them successfully understand the total delivery process. And I'd like to emphasize wholeheartedly that when our Gdot PMs are talking with locals, we prefer to talk to the local PM. We understand that some locals have assigned certain duties to their design consultant, but it is very important that we always communicate with the local rep, because the contract for the project delivery is not with us, it is with you, and therefore you should be our first point of contact. And not taking into account risk. As stated before in the previous slide, not understanding that if you don't go out to the public, and when we mean go out to the public, we mean per the NEPA process. Not that your council has seen it or approved it, because our board actually has to see and approve our projects too. But going through the public outreach process can also delay your project significantly. So as an engineer, I understand we always say, well, we know what the solution is. We more likely can not identify what should be done. But if the public does not understand the process and is not aware, it can derail your project. This does not mean it's a democratic system in that majority rules on any type of comments from the local, but them understanding what you're doing and why is very important to ensure you don't experience significant delays to your project. So I'd like to go over compliance checks. Excuse me, I'm sorry about that. I'd like to go over compliance checks process with you. So before Neosha discussed the audit process and our success in ensuring we are in compliance with that process, what OPD did was a couple of years ago, we came up with the compliance check process. That compliance check is not a punishment. It is OPD's way of ensuring you successfully set up your project and your records to ensure you don't get a finding. And so what we end up doing through the PM and the DPM, who may be your point of contact, is we come out, ensure you have your files set up, that they are on site with the local. It is it needs to be stated very clearly that the files being with your design consultant does not meet or the requirement of your agreement. They must be with the local. So we are trying to ensure that when your audit does come along, you pass with flying colors. So I just want to make sure people understand the difference between our compliance check process and the audit process, because we want to make sure that you do not have any issues in the future and continue to file and account for things properly as the project develops. All right. Certifications required for construction. So I'm going to go back to the previous slide on this, but our certifications required to authorize your funds is you have to have your environmental cert, your right-of-way search, which means you have all deeds and condemnations have been filed, your utility right-of-way certification, and we also have to have an ADA letter, which is ensuring the plans were developed per ADA, which is just a letter on your on your letterhead that states you have done what is required by the law. So I'm going to go back to the previous slide here, and we're going to go back through the project management role schedule. Sorry, the system is a little slow here. Okay. So right here, we're back to the project manager's roles and responsibilities. Excuse me, can you see my screen? Oh, hold on. All right. Let me know if you can see my screen.
We could see it all along.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Sorry, it's blacked on my screen. Okay, so you'll notice for project manager roles, we have the construction phase of your project development. So in there, we are going to coordinate with you to set your DBE goals, your Gdot reviews for your bid amendments, and then issue you NTP to advertise. At which point you will receive your NTP and your local agreement, and then the district construction engineer in your corresponding district will then get with the local to set up your pre-con meeting and establish all items needed for you to set up your files in order to be successful with your auditing process for the construction phase of your project. And that's under the guidance of, like I said, the DCE for District 7, which has the bulk of our projects. That's Mr. Lee Upkins and his team. Jacobs actually also has that contract with Georgia Department of Transportation. So we will ensure you have the resources or the entity consultant set up for your inspection and monitoring, your payments or progress of payments in construction, and your project closeout for construction. So that portion, once you have that pre-con meeting, we will go over what is required for the construction phase there. So therefore you can get to what we call open to traffic final acceptance for your project. Okay. And then I'm going to go back to the previous slide. So this basically is just a summary of the main focal points of what is needed for your construction project, your PS&E package with your required authorizations, your DBE goal, which will be set based on the project type and be approved by Georgia Department of Transportation in order to issue your construction agreement, final plans, and FHWA review. Please understand, when we put in the funding request for authorization of construction, that is done through FEMAS, which is FHWA's authorization software of funds. And as stated before, we have our checklist for construction and acceptance of our duties and responsibilities. So I'd like to go over that fairly quickly to give you an idea. When you are the what we call LPA acceptance or local, you are basically taking on the role of what Gdot would do for our own construction projects. We are just primarily providing oversight and guidance. However, we are here to help you with any questions or concerns you may have. And here's a link to that particular process, which I will also put in the chat for a quick reference. And then our local government bidding letting award process, as stated, NTP to the local, and then we will take you through the construction process through our pre-con meeting and with updated checks when needed to your what would be your assigned LPA construction project manager for the issuing of payments and approval of all materials and progress of the project. Our TV and TAP certifications, I want to actually not remind you, but inform you. We are updating the LAP manual to state that all federal funded projects require the local to be LAP certified.
Hi, Kim. This is Alex. Are you presenting right now?
Yes, I am.
All right, so my screen is presenting right now.
Okay.
Just want to let you know.
That's fine. Could you go to the slide that says TE LAP certifications? It should be your next slide. There you go, sir. Okay, so I just wanted to let you know, federally funded projects, we actually are going to update the manual. Previously, it's CMAQ funds and certain categories like Safe Routes to Schools, which will be retired, and our what we call a TE program will be phased out. So those funding sources will all now require a local to be LAP certified. Next slide, Alex. All right, that is the final slide. So we'll go ahead and go through questions that are in the chat, if there are any, and open it up for individuals. So there is Margie. Hi, Margie. She has a question regarding compliance checks. Do locals have to follow Gdot's document control filing system? The short answer to that, Margie, is no, you don't. We do provide it as a guidance. You must set up your filing system, and however that is set up is fine as long as all the items are accounted for. So we do provide input. We highly recommend you set it up in the flow of the project, concept report through preliminary through final and construction. It just makes it easier for you when you have to pull your records when we come out or do a virtual meeting to review your files. Next comment in the chat from Ms. Crystal Stovall Dixon, who actually is my assistant office head here in program delivery. Malik, she's asking about the slides. Thank you.
No,
but,
I was replying.
Okay.
I was replying to
Okay.
Malik.
Malik, okay. But Crystal actually is a resource for locals. She actually is responsible, or not responsible, but the bulk of the local ed projects PMs report to her. So if you need an escalation, as I stated before, please review the org chart and you can actually escalate issues as needed. Let's see here.
There were a couple of, I'm sorry,
ahead.
Kim. There were a couple of earlier slides about costs, which we may have addressed. Inflation's now hurting local funding, and can Gdot FHWA increase project funds when cost estimates increase?
Okay. So the first part of that, yes, inflation is an issue. Gdot, we are having the same problem. We actually had one project that just went from $23 million to $32 million, if you can imagine. What we have informed locals is that I highly recommend, if you have an inflation issue or things have gone up, like I said before, you need to contact ARC, the NPO, or planning to increase your costs. If it is at the time of the award, we always recommend to the locals to go ahead and execute the construction agreement. And then if they need additional funds, they can request it through their programming manager, which we can include in the contract as a supplemental agreement. The problem with holding contracts until you have the full allotment of money is any project that does not receive charges over a year is considered an inactive project. And also your POs, your low bid will expire over time. So best practice is, like I stated before, keep up with your cost estimates and ensure you are asking for additional funds as soon as you know costs go up. So when it is time to authorize that phase and provide you the agreement, you are ready to go. So that is the way you would have to handle inflation. I hope that answers your question. All right, Margie, go ahead, Lillian.
There's a question that may have been addressed earlier by Neosha, but the question is, when you say all federally funded projects, that only applies to federally funded under FHWA and not other divisions like FTA. Can you confirm, explain?
Okay, so for our office, we don't handle FTA projects. Those are usually transferred to transit. Neosha would have to provide more details, as she stated, when the bill is further developed and they're presented with the rules. But for our office, if you're receiving a federal project, or if you will be applying to be a direct grant recipient for the new program, you will have to be LAP certified regardless of the if the federal funds are CMAQ or Z230 or Z240. So if it's federally funded projects, yes, you will have to be LAP certified.
I don't see any other questions in the chat. Going once? Oh, there's Dan.
Yeah, I just, for that FHWA, FTA question, I just say, we're talking about federal highway funds here. The FTA funds are administered differently, and mostly those are direct recipients through FTA. I think Gdot may handle some, but I think it's a different office that handles some of the FTA funds, but generally FTA funds are direct recipient, directly sent to and administered by locals. So you'd work through FTA for those funds.
That is correct. That is under the Office of Intermodal, as stated. Any additional questions before I conclude my presentation? Okay, thank you very much. As stated before.
Thank you, Kimberly. We appreciate you.
Yes.
And I think now, Alex, we've got one of our project photos to share before we go to Malik's presentation. This is Battlefield Trail. I just lost it. There we go. Battlefield Trail in the City of Dallas, Phase 1. It's a 10-foot wide multi-use path from Orphan Brigade Drive to Griffin's Creek. It features a pedestrian bridge over the creek, a pedestrian shelter, interpretive signage along the way with benches and landscaping. Their project cost was $750,000 and completed in May 2019. Thank you for sharing that with us, City of Dallas. We appreciate you. And now we have Malik Alkush, who is the LAP Program Coordinator for Gdot. Mr. Alkush.
Good morning, everybody. I'm back again. Alice, could you pull up my slides, please? All right. If you've been to Gdot for a while and you've been doing local LET projects, everyone is familiar with Malik. Okay, as Neosha started out, she gave a little history of the program. Ms. Kimberly Nesbitt talked about her development with the Office of Program Delivery. Well, give you a little history for myself. I started out with this program with Gdot in 1985, went off to grad school, came back and started back in 2014 in the Office of Program Control. Prior to that, I worked in the Office of OTD, dealing with all of the Office of Transportation data. But to get us to where we are today, the Office of Program Control has the LAP certified program. That's the office where you become LAP certified. And if you remember looking at Ms. Nesbitt's slides when she had the LAP process, you become very much aware that the Gdot project manager will assist you once you're LAP certified in the PDP process, all the way from planning to construction. So if you can remember that slide and go back and refer to it, it used to be a part of our training, but we're in the programming, we're in the planning phase. You'll find that you really need to become LAP certified when your project is being programmed and you're planning it and you know that you're going to try to have federal funding on the project. That's something that we want everyone to remember. So the development of the Local Administered Project Program has taken a lot of twists and turns since 2014. We saw the necessity back in October of 2021 to do a symposium survey. That survey was sent out to the local public agencies, I think it was October the 5th, around October the 5th of 2021. And we had about 20 plus questions in that we put out to the local public agencies, and we had about 50 plus local governments to respond. And that's what Ms. Nesbitt was responding to in her presentation. We categorized a lot of those frequently asked questions that we categorized the symposium questions, and we put them into what we call frequently asked questions that you can find on our website. As I go through my slides, that website can be, our LAP website can be put in for you to go to. But I am going to address, as Ms. Nesbitt has addressed, some of those key survey questions and responses that we have. Next slide. So our Office of Program Control, as we said earlier, Bobby Hilliard is our Program Control Administrator. He's not able to be with us today. I am the LEP Coordinator. For years, this was pretty much a one-man show. As Neosha said earlier, Federal High came on board and they did their first review in 2014, and they realized that we needed to have a full-time person, and I actually became her counterpart at Gdot. Well, we chucked along for about 5 years, and the program grew and grew and grew, and we realized that we needed more resources, more technical support. So around the fall, so we began the process of looking for help, and we wind up getting our consulting on board, which is Jacobs, which we'll talk about a little bit later. And you see next, Jacobs we have Lee Upkins, the principal in charge. Now everyone is interfacing a lot with Ms. Gibson. Janice, she's the LEP program manager. Ms. Lillian Jackson, she's our moderator for today. She deals with our communications with the program. Alex Chung, he's the project engineer. He does a lot of technical things for us with the LEP consultant team. And we have Ms. Sarah Joyner. A lot of the people have interfaced with Ms. Joyner in terms of keeping up with your certifications, making sure that the full-time responsible charge person is still employed or working. So within the last 3 years, we've introduced the Jacobs Engineering Group, which has been doing a fantastic job to help give us the support that we need in the local administered program. Next slide. Certification and recertification. Local governments need to work closely with their district planning and programming liaison. That's commonly called your DPPL. Their title has changed throughout the years. First, it was DPPE, District Planning and Programming Engineer. Then it changed to something else, and now it's the DPPL. So you may be familiar with that if you've been around for a while at Gdot. But we've designed the program and laid the program out so that we're trying to get the local governments to interface with the local person in the district. which is your district planning and programming liaison. That person, male or female, will help you when you're trying to become LAP certified. Through the application process, through the interview process, which we'll talk about a little bit later. Okay, next slide. Communications and coordination. The Symposium survey, when we reviewed and categorized some of the questions, they came into about 4 or 5 different categories, and we try to divide those between the offices, such as the Office of Program Delivery, our Office of Program Control that deals directly with LAP certification, various offices such as right-of-way and utilities. And one of the major things that we found is that communications and coordination is a major, major issue. A lot of times the locals will program a project, but they're not LAP certified, and they're chucking along, and they realize that they have to stop or slow down their project because they have not had the proper training or been orientated so that they'll know the PDP process to actually know that, hey, this project cannot go forward. You have to take training. You have to do an interview in your district with the district planning and programming liaison. I was trying to pause for that person. But we've tried, and we actually are doing a better job at communicating and coordinating with program updates through the district, through the local public agencies, and our office staff at One Georgia Center, which we call OGC, our staff. There's uniformity in the LAP and OPD websites. I guess we got a lot of people exiting and coming in. As you heard Ms. Nesbitt say earlier, she alluded to the websites. We are updating our websites so that as you get a project manager and hopefully you're already LAP certified or you're not, you'll realize that if you go to the OPD website and to the LAP website, that they're uniform, and that if you have a local-led project, it would not matter. It would not matter for certain activities, that all those activities will be covered in the LAP process. Advanced notification of training. We have 5 training courses that we'll talk about later. The program manager will talk about that, Ms. Janice Gibson, in her presentation. But we give advanced notification of training. Our training calendar comes out in October of every year. Due to the pandemic, we may have been a little early or a little late, but you can rest assured that you have ample opportunity to take the 5 required training courses for you to become LAP certified as a local public agency. Training, registration, and guidance. That with Jacobs coming on board, we in the past, a lot of the locals would experience what we call the blue ball of death, which means that when they were trying to register and go to the websites, some of the administrative and the registration would give them, they would get caught up with that. Well, we've actually been able to get beyond that hurdle. None of the locals have had any problem with registration for any of the courses, because we're in a virtual format and platform now. It makes it very easy to register for all of the training courses to become LAP certified. Construction staff guidance. As a part of the LAP program, we have expanded our training. There's day 1 and there's day 2 of local administered project training. On day 2, we have expanded our presentation and our training component to give you more detail about how a local needs to finish out their projects and what we call the construction phase. You've heard Ms. Nesbitt talk about that in her presentation. She went into detail about how the project manager comes in, you get set up through the district construction engineer, and you make sure and we ensure that that guidance for the construction portion of the project is actually there. What we found is that a lot of the locals were able to get through the the PE portion or the pre-construction portion of a local-led project with federal funding. But as they got down to the construction component, there wasn't a lot of uniformity in the way that the locals executed or kept their records or did their materials testing. We had to come back and give more guidance there. So we beefed up our training. The Office of Program Delivery turns that component from pre-construction over to construction, and there's better coordination and guidance between pre-construction and construction to assist the local and having successful coordination and communications as you're still certified, as you're still supposed to protect the federal investment through the construction phase as well. Next slide. Training and certification. Of course, you said it before, there are 5 required training courses: LAP, PDP, right-of-way, Title VI/ADA, and the last one is Procurement, Engineering and Design Procurement Policy and Procedure. These 5 trainings are required for you to become LAP certified. At a minimum, the local public agency's designated full-time responsible charge and alternate responsible charge person must complete LAP and PDP training. We do it on a 3-year cycle. Every 3 years on, every 3 years on a quarterly cycle. That means that every 3 years you need to take the training, but that does not mean that every 3 years you're certified. A lot of the locals get it confused. They get their expiration date of when the local entity certification expires and they have to recertify. They get that confused with the training components that the individuals take for the local public agency. Those 2 things do not always match. So we always have an open door and a revolving door of training. And that's why our training calendar comes out in October of every year, because a local public agency certification may be expiring, but yet the training component, those certificates have not expired within that 3-year period from the time they took the training. Next slide. This slide just pretty much goes over the documentation that is required at this particular time. If you notice, you see the word copy, 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 because we have to have on record your organizational chart, which the program manager will explain the importance of your organizational chart to make sure that we have the full-time responsible charge, to make sure that we have an alternate in place, to make sure that there isn't a lapse in certification. All training and documentation must be completed and approved before the interview with your DPPL and the submittal of the LAP application. As we go through the presentations today, you're gonna hear about an online application process that's about to be rolled out to Gdot. Right now, everything is being sent into the office and it's being reviewed, but we're about to turn a major corner here with technology so we can provide a better service to the locals in terms of the using a virtual platform and dealing with our certification and our electronic keeping of documents electronically. I want to mention that TAP projects will require LAP certification. With the new transportation bill coming, as you've heard from Federal Highway, we're putting ourselves in a position of updating our LAP manual, where we're making it clear to the locals that if you have federal funding and you want to be eligible for the different types of grants that are coming, it will behoove the locals to put themselves in a position to be LAP certified so that you won't have any funding issues as a subrecipient receiving the funds from Gdot for your local-led projects. Next slide. LA compliance plans. This is pretty much of a template letter that you're looking at. It's a it's not a new development, but we made it uniform in this template. Whenever a local is not compliant for whatever reason, if you have someone to leave the organization, or you're audited and you're not found in compliant with the LAP manual or with any state or federal laws, rules, or regulations, you will complete this LAP compliance letter. It's found on our webpage. It's pretty straightforward. You need to list your exact issue and how you plan to come into compliance. It's called a LAP compliance plan. With this plan, it ensures Gdot that you are aware that you're not compliant, but you will become compliant. You have 30 days to do that. Anytime that any issue arises and you're not compliant, you need to get that plan into our office within 30 days so that we can assist you. A lot of times, Janice, she will help out the locals. Your district planning and programming liaison will help you because a lot of times the locals don't understand what is the solution to becoming compliant. When do I need to take the next training course? I don't know who to send to the training course. We're here to assist you with all those things. Next slide. So why so much training? Well, from the feedback that we received, we've come to understand that training is best. As the new funding, as the new transportation bill is coming down, it'll be imperative for all of our stakeholders to be on the same page. We understand that with the symposium survey questions and the responses, we realized that the locals were really concerned with the process. We have certain local public agencies that are very familiar with the PDP process and the LAP process, the right-of-way process, the procurement process, as well as remaining compliant with Title VI, as well as the construction process. So the survey gave us the opportunity to come back and have the symposium to give you the information that's needed. So we've realized that training is imperative. It needs to be ongoing. We actually see that in the upcoming years with the pandemic and the virtual platform, that it gives us more opportunities to train. So the evaluation areas, the questionnaire and the evaluation areas were many. We tried to categorize them, as I said earlier, and a lot of those questions we're addressing right now. So we talked about 3-year certification. I hope that's clear with the locals, what that certification actually is. One of the things that the survey revealed is that a lot of the locals wanted a refresher course versus full LAP training. Well, there is no refresher course. Our policies and procedures grow and change. The CFRs, we have to remain compliant. We've taken this opportunity to put the survey out, and the survey revealed that a symposium, what you're currently participating in now, is one of the greatest mechanisms to convey any changes in our policies, any workflows that we have identified that locals may not be compliant in, or we have delays in. We've identified that a symposium, an annual thing, may be very helpful to engage the locals in a format that's actually mandatory for the locals to attend. You won't be penalized, but I think everyone would agree that if you could come once a year and you can see the changes in the program, you could know who's on first and who's on second, that is a benefit, and you get good feedback. The responsible charge versus the LAP certification, I've tried to address that. The responsible charge has to have at a minimum the LAP and the PDP training, and the LAP certification is entirely different from the training component. That's been a confusion with a lot of the locals. And Janice Gibson will talk about this more in detail when she brings up her presentation. I'm just trying to give you an overview as the coordinator of what we put together and the feedback that we received from the Symposium survey. Notification 1 year before LAP certification expiration. That's been one of our goals. We send out a template letter. That letter gives you all of the requirements to become LAP certified. It notifies the locals of who they need to contact in their district, which is the district planning and programming liaison. It lets them know who in our office you need to contact if you cannot contact that person that's in the district. We call it a one-stop shop. Before anything leaves the district, you should have met with the district planning and programming liaison to answer all of your questions when it comes to LAP certification or being recertified. You see here below, you see the 7 evaluation areas that the local governments receive not only training in, but they also have to respond to these areas on the LAP certification application. And that application, these same 7 areas are for certification for locals that are first time receiving federal funds on locally led projects or for recertification. Next slide. So what are we hearing? I've talked a little bit about that. We're hearing that the LAP manual and the LAP study guide. Well, what is that? When you take the LAP training, there's documentation that is actually sent out before the actual training itself, and that's called the LAP study guide. That study guide has all of our slides, it has an appendices, it has a lot of valuable information that the locals can take away, print out themselves, and take it away as they go through the life of a project. If they're confused about the certification process, or can I do this, can I do that? A lot of those forms and documents are in that LAP study guide. That is distinct from the LAP manual, which is the living document. As you heard Ms. Nesbitt say from the Office of Program Delivery, we're in the process of updating a portion of that chapter in the LAP manual that talks about federal funding and the different categories or different programs that are being phased away, such as the TE program, the safe routes to schools, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But both of these are good resources and they have different uses. A lot of times the locals get those confused, but the manual and the study guide work hand in hand. If you're taking our training class, you can follow along with the study guide and it matches up with every slide. And it also matches with what we're talking about in the manual at the same time. So let's talk about, last but not least, the training component of the local administered project. We offer training classes more often. Yes, we do. Virtual training is preferred. From the survey and from my experience with the pandemic, we realized that the locals actually engage more and it saves money and time. We have a lot of stats on that. We won't bore you with those stats and pie charts, from the attendance that we received in the classes. Just off the top, our classes have always varied, say, from 30, 40 people to 50, 60 people. Now we're seeing classes above 75. And with the new funding coming down in the transportation bill, we expect all of our training classes to totally soar probably beyond 90 to 100 in each class, so that everyone is going to be trying to put themselves in a position so that they can be eligible to receive federal funding through the new transportation bill. So consider more regional locations for in-person training. This was one of the things that we received before the Symposium survey. The locals have always said, could you come closer to us so that we can receive the training? We have in-person training. Me and Neosha, as well as others, Federal Highway, as well as other Gdot subject matter experts, we've traveled in person to give the training. We've actually found that using the virtual platform has been very effective. We may go back. We don't know how it's going to go. We may have some in-person training, and that's one of the reasons why the Symposium we think is an excellent idea from Federal Highway, so we could at least interface with the locals once a year to update everyone and keep everyone informed. Next slide. I've talked a lot about the lessons that have been learned and us overcoming challenges with the program. We have regular team communication and coordination meetings. What does it mean to have regular team communication and coordination meetings? In the district, if you are a local public agency and you become an LAP certified, one of the key people that you need to interface with is the district planning and programming liaison. You need to interface with the subject matter experts for the 7 evaluation areas, which is right-of-way, utilities, et cetera, et cetera. If you interface with those subject matter experts and the district planning and programming liaison, you will breeze through the certification process. You will breeze through your pre-construction process and your construction process. That interface is very important, and the project managers out of the Office of Program Delivery make themselves available for that. You see the workload that they have. You see how you can escalate issues that you may be having on your projects. Ask the Gdot subject matter expert. If there's any doubt about the next step, you need to just communicate, coordinate, because we're there as a resource. I know in the past with the LAP program, everybody used to call Malik. My phone used to go off all the time. I had 100 emails and I would be responsive. Now that we have Jacobs on board, we are more responsive. We're doing our best to help the locals if they can't get to some of the subject matter experts when it comes to LAP certification. And all Gdot and federal highway audits, we are advocates for the local public agency. Later on this afternoon, you're going to hear more about the Gdot audits and how they're done and how we interface with the locals. Federal Highway has a similar process where they do it interactively with the virtual platform. Next slide. Any questions? I went a little fast. Any questions in the chat, Ms. Jackson?
Yes, there are a couple. One question is, as the designated full-time responsible charge, I've completed all the training courses and maintain the city certification at least every 3 years. Does the alternate for my city need to take all 5 classes every 3 years or just LAP and PDP?
At a minimum, your alternate needs to take the LAP and the PDP to be your alternate. We recommend that they take all 5 because that makes them a full-time responsible charge person who, if anything happens to you, they can step right in. It's always recommended. In the past, it was just a full-time responsible charge, and there would always be issues when it was time to recertify.
And the question that I think you addressed, but why don't they just have a short renewal course every 3 years rather than requiring everyone to completely retake all courses? That's what they do, for example, with the Georgia Soil and Water Conservation Commission.
Well, we have a different type org, and the nature of our work changes. As you see, we have a whole new transportation bill coming down that we're trying to prepare for. So a refresher, years ago, we had something called PDP Lite, and it was not effective. When I say not effective, we had so many changes coming down and so many funding issues and trying to keep everyone certified that it would not benefit the locals. That person that would take the refresher would only be refreshed on that component, not the entire process. So all need to take all of the training.
Hey everyone, my name is Shanice Gibson. I'm the LEP program manager, like she said. Next slide, please. Okay, so throughout the day, we will continue to emphasize the importance of the LEP webpage because all of the great resources that are placed in one location to assist you with the LEP certification process and with overall LEP certification information. For instance, we have the LAP manual that's located on the webpage, and it's always the latest version. And then we have your district planning and programming liaison information which is per district. And if you don't know what district you fall within, there's a Find Your District tab on the site, and you click on that and a map will pull up and you find yourself within that map, and voila, you know your district now. All right, next slide, please. Some updates recently made to the LAP webpage are the LAP compliance audit video. Some may have already seen it if you've taken the LAP training course this past January. You will see this video later today and we'll be able to ask questions. Also, remember the latest LAP applications are located on the webpage under the application tab. Now, when you're applying for LAP certification or recertification, please always use the latest application. If you don't know, please contact me or your DPPL for information. And for LAP certification as of now, the application should be dated January 2022. As for recertification, it should be dated October 2021. And also under that tab, you will find the latest LPA listings for all the LPAs that are currently certified at this time. All right, on the webpage also, you will find the latest training calendar. You'll be able to access LMS for course enrollment or dropping. And information pertaining to each training course required for LAP training is located. You see the each training course, they have a tab, and if you click on each tab, it'll give you a brief description of each course. All right, the latest version of the LAP manual is 3.1. I think this revision was done last year in October, and which we will continue to revise where necessary for clarity and to make the manual more resourceful for you guys. Previously mentioned, the training calendar is located on the webpage, and the latest one that you will have is dated October 6, 2021. And also on the training calendar, and also located on your certificates when you take the courses. For anyone who has a PE license and who need continued education hours, on the calendar it tells you how many hours that goes towards your continued education hours, or which are the PDH hours, is located on the calendar as well, along with your training certificates, if you would like to know. You will hear a lot about LAPS from me and Mr. Chung next after me. LAPS is the Local Administered Projects and Programs site that will be launched soon. We are currently testing and working along with Gdot IT to bring this forward to you. And with LAPS, you will be able to complete your applications electronically, communicate with the LAPCC, which is the LAP Certification Committee, if you were wondering, regarding specific sections, upload documentation, and reduce or streamline the LAP certification process to 30 days. With LAPS, we will again streamline the process for application review and approval timeline. So with the SMEs or the LAPCC, they will have 5 days to review their sections. And then the overall process should be, again, streamlined to 30 days. And right now, again, soft testing is in process and we're working with Gdot IT. And then when you guys are able to use it, we will also provide a user guide. With communication roles and responsibilities, each LPA should have both a full-time responsible charge and an alternate full-time responsible charge local public agency employee. The purpose of this is to help cover the LPA with maintaining their LAP program requirements, just in case either one leaves or departs from the LAP certification program or agency. Now, we do understand that some agencies are smaller than others and they can only provide a full responsible charge. So if you communicate that to us, we'll be able to work something out for you. And then also with procurement, please send the right person to training, specifically someone from your finance department or someone who handles the day-to-day procurement tasks for the agency. The LAPCC or the LAP Certification Committee member in charge of this area is Maria Rue, and she reviews information placed within the application, your org chart, and within your plan or adoption letter that you will submit. So she reviews all those documents when she checks the procurement area. With LAP compliance audits for the fiscal year of 2021, we had a total of 25 LAP audits. The listing of all the audits that were conducted are on your right-hand side of the slide. It shows per district and what agency and the project numbers that were audited. And for the fiscal year 2021, there were a total of 89 LPA certified. During that year, 9 were certified, 9 were recertified. For LAP certification and recertification, there are 2 different types of applications. As you guys know, I said always use the current version, which is certification and recertification. And certification is good for 3 years, like Malik mentioned earlier. And there's 3 types: the full certification acceptance, and the non-CA, which is option 1, and non-CA option 2. And all of these requirements must be met. The LPA must have a full responsible charge and an alternate full responsible charge. You must complete your application. You must provide a procurement plan or an adoption letter. You must have a Title VI plan or agreement, depending on your population. And you must have the 5 training certificates. And you must complete all training before starting the application, so then you'll be able to fill out the application appropriately. And then also, you must submit all your documentation first to your DPPL for review in order for them to schedule an interview. All these requirements must be met. Okay, within 1 week, the DPPLs, they will schedule a LAP interview. So they could discuss whether you have any revisions or they have any recommendations for you. If there are no revisions, then it comes to me and I will submit it to the LAPCC within 1 to 3 days after I review it. And again, if I see anything that needs to be revised or recommend anything, I'll reach out to you. And then the LAPCC, of course, are the subject matter experts, and they review each one of the areas. And if they require any additional documentation or revisions, then either I or the DPPL will reach out to you so we can get that area satisfied or approved so we can move you forward. With LAP certification and recertification timelines. If everything's submitted correctly, you can receive certification within 3 to 4 weeks. Now, if corrections are required, the timeline depends on how long the LPA takes to resubmit their documentation. It can go all the way up to 3 to 4 months. And like, for instance, for example, you have to get, some cities have to, or counties have to get council approval. So, like, for example, with procurement, say, for instance, you had to resubmit, you adopt the Gdot's procurement policy, and you had to resubmit. Something wasn't, the wrong person signed it, or you didn't get council approval. You have to get back in line behind everyone else that has submitted, all the other locals that have submitted, because it's just Ms. Rue reviewing all the documentation for procurement, and she's reviewing the whole state. So we're going to try with LAPs, that's going to eliminate some of those issues, because then she'll be able to go back and forth with you a little bit more directly to get those issues corrected that you may have at the time. Hopefully you don't have any. LPA Seek and Recertification, you can submit your documentation 6 months to a year prior to your expiration date. The information associated with your expiration date is located on the LPA listing that I spoke about earlier that's under the application tab on the LEP webpage. So you can see, when that your expiration date is, or you can reach out to me or your DPPL and we'd be more than happy to assist you. All right, some common challenges to the LEP certification. Again, procurement, sending the correct person to training who deals with the day-to-day procurement operations. Also knowing whether to submit a procurement plan or adopt the procurement, Gdot's procurement policy. And remember, this is what you're going to use for the LEP, the projects that fall under LEP certification. With Title VI, you need to know your population. You need to know whether you need to submit an agreement or a plan. And also you need to submit something that's current. So it has to be within the current year that you are applying for the LEP certification. So say, for instance, you're applying this month, you cannot submit something that's dated for 2021. Well, right away, they're beginning to notice that, you can't help that you don't have any projects during the time or the previous years where you're trying to apply for LEP certification. So a lot of locals are putting NA. So you can't help putting NA in some blanks, but it's a question on the application. I can't remember exactly how it was worded, but they ask you if you have any projects. So even though you don't have any projects, when you do get a project, you need to be able to explain to her on the application, what would you do when you do receive a project? How will you handle that procedure when it comes to right away? Same thing for OMAT and some other areas on the application. If you don't have any projects, when it comes to material testing, explain what you will do when it's time to do testing on the project when you do get one. And also with OMAT, if you're doing recertification, she would like to see, when you reference a project and application, she would like to see that LAP form. That's for that project. And the LAP form is that form that you get approved through OMAT that indicates who's doing the testing. Is it Gdot testing? Is it consultant testing? Or is it no testing? Or is it a landscaping project? So those are some of the common areas. And our goal is to hear concerns and get ideas for improvements from our program team members. So we utilize the DPPLs, the LAPCC, which is your some of your training SMEs, and also this symposium, which may become an annual meeting. Next slide. When it comes to customer service, we're here to help you. So on the LEP webpage, we have, if you scroll down, we have FNQs. And there are common questions that's always asked about the LEP certification program. And also after the symposium, we will revamp and add some questions in this area for you guys. And also, if you can't think of my email or your DPPL's contact information, at the very bottom where that star is an email address where you can email and it directly will come to me and my counterpart, Miss Sarah Joyner. I know you've seen, some of you may have seen her name on the emails as well, and she may have sent you an email from time to time as well too. Next slide. And then you can also contact the Gdot OPC administrator, which is Mr. Bobby Hilliard. You have the Gdot LEP program coordinator, which is Mr. Malik Alkush, who was speaking earlier. And then you have the Jacobs, Gdot, LEP team manager or the LEP program manager, which is myself, Janice Gibson. And then for training and enrollment and updating your profiles for training or any LMS questions, Ms. Vivian Reed. And other program questions, as mentioned previously, Ms. Sarah Joyner. But, you know, you can reach out to me first. Please try to reach out to your DPPL, myself, or Ms. Joyner if you have any questions. Any questions?
There is a question in the chat. Where to find procurement training? I don't see it on the LAP webpage.
It's on the LEP training calendar. If you scroll down the calendar, you will see where it says procurement training. And if you're referring to it in LMS, when you go to, it won't be in LMS that way. On the training calendar, it has an email address in the area where it has the calendar dates for procurement, and it tells you to email that email address to and request which training course you would like to be placed in. So it's located on the training calendar for you to that email address. Is that what you're asking? Is that good? All right, thank you.
Other questions? We've got Janice. She knows all the answers.
I do not.
Yes, you do.
Thank you guys. And yes, the DPPLs are very helpful. So I really appreciate all the hard work that they provide to you all too as well. If you have any questions, you have my information. Thank you.
You're muted, Miss Lillian. You're muted.
Sorry. I was busy turning the camera on and not the mic. We have a couple more project questions to share just to give you a little more inspiration of what can be achieved. This is Klondike Road at McDaniel Mill Road, Hurst Road roundabout in Rockdale County. This project corrected the failing operations of a 5-leg intersection by relocating Klondike Road to intersect with McDaniel Mill Road. Crews then constructed the 4-legged single roundabout with ADA compliant pedestrian access to improve driver and pedestrian safety. It's $5.3 million, completed in November 2021. Congratulations to you, Rockdale County, on this. And then the Augusta Canal Authority has provided us with this project, the Mill Village Multi-Use Trail in Augusta, Richmond County. It's an extension of a larger trail project delivered with Gdot funding. It connects the downtown Riverwalk among Savannah River and Augusta Canal into adjacent Columbia County. It required crossing the historic Augusta Canal and much coordination with the U.S. Corps of Engineers and the Georgia Historic Preservation Division. $1.3 million, completed in October 2020. Thank you, Augusta Canal Authority, for sending us that photo. Do you all have any questions of, I'm assuming that the locals who provided these photos are in the room. Any questions or comments you all might want to make about your projects? Okay, I've got a couple more trivia. Yay, you. How lucky are you today? What industry became a boon for Georgia following the tax credit passed by Governor Sonny Perdue and the General Assembly in 2008? What industry became a boon for Georgia following a tax credit passed by Governor Sonny Perdue and the General Assembly in 2008? I see some correct answers. It is the entertainment industry, particularly the film and TV production industry. The Entertainment Industry Investment Act of 2008 became the largest tax credit in the US for this industry. It's a 20% tax credit, plus an additional 10% if the Georgia logo appeared somewhere at the end of the production. So that gave them 30%, which is why you always see film crews all over the state. Thank you for answering that one. How many ports in Georgia? Ports are vital to our logistics industry here in Georgia. Ports, as in water ports. Not airport, ports. Yes, Jason, you must be Googling inland included. Oh. Okay, we have two deep water ports, Brunswick and Savannah, which I see most of you guessed that there were two, but there are also 3 inland ports, Columbus, Bainbridge, and Chatsworth. Just one more, let's see. I have cards. True or false? Georgia DOT is not a founding member of Metro Atlanta's Clean Air Campaign, which is an effort to reduce carbon emissions and reduce traffic by encouraging carpooling, vanpooling, and transit. True or false? You seem to be on the right track. Georgia DOT is a founding member of the Clean Air Campaign, and through Georgia Commute Options promotes carpooling, vanpooling, gives services to employers in the Metro Atlanta area to help their employees find alternate ways to work besides driving single occupant vehicles. I think now I can introduce Mr. Alex Chung, who's been working behind the scenes. Thank you, Alex, for running these slides and presentations. He's going to talk about LAPS, which Janice introduced in her presentation.
Yeah, thank you, Lillian, for that introduction. Like she mentioned, I will be going over the LAP application and the LAPS website. Before we get started on the LAPS website, I just want to show you where the existing LAP application is at on the LAP website. So if everybody's looking on the left of my screen, you will see that this is the current LAP website. that we make changes periodically. And you can find the application under the application tab. And your options would be either submitting a certification application or a recertification application. Now, if you've already submitted a certification application in the past.
Excuse me, Alex. I'm sorry to interrupt you. We're just seeing you right now. We're not seeing the other screen.
Sorry about that. Can you see my screen now?
There we go.
All right. Sorry about that. So I'll just start over. This is the LAP website. And in order to access the current application that we have, you would go to the application tab. And your two options would be the certification and recert application. If you've already submitted a certification application in the past, you will be submitting a recert app on future submissions. And below these two applications, you will see that there is a certified local public agency list. This list just details all the LPAs that are certified to date and with their expirations as well. So if you see that your LPA is not listed here, just reach out to us and we'll make that change. We typically update this every 30 days. Okay, so going back to this application tab, in the future, once LAPS is rolled out, we will have a robust user guide that will help assist the locals to navigate through the application process. And it will be under this section. And then I'm just going to open up the current certification that we have. This is the LAP certification application. It was last updated in January of this year. So if you are planning to submit an application in the next month or so, please make sure that you're using the latest form. All right, so next, I just want to highlight the table of contents. This is the structure of the LAP application. It lists the required training that you will need, important documentation that the LPA must submit, and the associated sections that also have more information that is required. Specifically, sections A through F gets reviewed by different offices at Gdot. So for section A, it will be Title VI, B is environmental, C is right of way, D is utility, E construction, and then finally F procurement. So that's just the structure of the existing application. I'm now going to move over to what we have developed or we are under testing now, which is the LAP site, which we are calling the Local Administered Project Program site. This is just the main page, the login screen. I'm just going to show you how we can log in today and just show you what the application looks like. So right now, in order to log in, you would click on this login and register button. You would click on sign up now. You would enter in your email address. You would click send verification code, and then you will receive an email with that verification code, and then you will be able to finish setting up your account. And once you set up your account, this will be routed to Gdot for their review, and then they will finalize and approve your account. And when that is done, then the local will be able to sign in and start their application. So I'm just going to sign in since I'm already approved. And then Gdot also will have a two-step verification. And so you will have to do this every time that you log in. All right, so this is the home screen that you will see. This window right here is the application data information. You will be able to see the name of the application, the status of the application. That covers, if the local has started it, who's reviewing the application, and the next column covers how many days left is in the queue. So for our subject matter experts, we've given them right now 5 days for their review process. And I believe for the locals, they get, I believe, 90 days as a default for 90 days from when they started this application to when they submit it. This just covers when the application was submitted and who created the application. One thing that the local can do, they can export the form. This will just print out what the application looks like. So if you've already started filling out the application, it will fill out this form to where you filled out the application. Now, if you haven't started on it, it will just be a blank form, but it'll be useful for working on the application offline. Another option that you can do instead of printing the form is to see all the attachments to an application. This will be helpful for actually the subject matter experts. They can just click the attachments, pull the attachments that are specific to their section and review it. So I feel like that's pretty helpful. So that's the application window. We will have another window below, which is going to be titled Communication. And that's going to cover all comments that the local may have on the application, or also the comments provided from the Gdot subject matter experts, either addressing those comments or asking for further information. And so I'm just going to click on one that we've been testing so far. So I'm going to just pick this one. And so this is the application. As you can tell, looking from the left and the right, we've kept all the sections the same. We've basically kept all the questions the same to make it easy. But from moving on to this online platform, we do have a few new features that we're able to add to this application. One of them being this comment bubble that the locals can provide a comment saying, hey, I need more information. Or just any comment that you may have on that question. And so that once you submit your comment, that'll be routed to Gdot immediately, and they'll be able to see that comment, respond to it, and submit it back to the local. So once a comment is made, you'll see that there's a blue bubble for that section. That just means that there's a comment made in that section. Another feature that we added is that certain questions on the application ask for additional documentation to be uploaded. That'll be indicated by this file icon. And so you would just click that and provide the file that is requested. So for this example, it says provide proof of your Title VI policy via web or printed materials. So we use this to upload your file. And then another thing to highlight is that the sections that are highlighted in red, that just means that you didn't fill out all the information that is required. So if all the information was submitted properly, these sections would turn green. And again, the blue bubble just means that there's a comment in that section. So I'm just going to full screen this. There is one section I want to highlight is that there's a documents tab. All of the information or the documents that are uploaded here will be useful documentations for the local to assist them in their system just to submit the application. So that may be the user guide, helpful templates, examples, and so forth. So all that will be stored here. So with that, that pretty much covers what we have developed to date. We are currently still testing the application, hopefully to finish that in the next month or so. And then from there, we'll migrate it over to Gdot system and then hopefully roll it out by the end of the year. So with that, I'll take any questions.
You do have a couple questions in the chat. Is sign-on limited to one person per local government entity, or are multiple users allowed?
You will be allowed to have multiple users. They'll just have to have their own account, and you will be able to work on the application simultaneously.
So it's one application, but multiple users.
Correct.
Okay. Let's see. One guest says they will begin recertification in April. Will they need to use the online application?
I would say you would still use what we currently have on the LAP website. If anything changes, obviously we will notify all the LPAs of the new procedure.
And if an LPA has already lapsed certification, should they go ahead and submit using the current forms or wait for the online portal? I guess similar question to that.
Yes, yeah, I will go ahead and submit using the current form.
Is there a size limit to the files to be uploaded?
Actually, I'm not sure. I know the answer to that question, but I'll follow up with the team to see if there is.
Should they all be PDF'd just in case?
So it can be uploaded. Any file can be uploaded. I think one file that cannot be uploaded is like an executable document or file.
Alex, just so I can help out a little bit, what we've known and what we've seen in the past is that the biggest documents that have been uploaded have been construction documents, right? Those construction documents are pretty thick, and I think with today's technology, a lot of people are using PDFs. So, and a lot of local public agencies are familiar with PDFs. So I think we will be able to receive many different formats, but working with PDFs has always been easy because we can do whatever we need to do.
So if you'll do that for me, I appreciate it. So I'm just going to talk about some of the basics, and here's my contact information. I'm the safety and traffic engineer in the Georgia Division of Federal Highway Administration. So all things safety or traffic, which complete streets have to do with both. This slide just presents some disclaimers saying that what I'm going to present today are not requirements. They're not requirements, and also FHWA does not endorse any of the products that you might see in here. There's some products in this presentation, but there's nothing specific in here as far as products that we're pushing or endorsing. Next slide, please. Okay, that's good. So what are complete streets? Complete streets are just complete street. There's no such thing as a complete street. It's not an exact configuration or anything. Complete streets is a concept. So Stephanie Pollock of FHWA leadership, she's our deputy administrator. She said that a complete street is a street where that's safe for everyone, and it also feels safe for everyone. It's something where we design routine. It's routine design and construction. So it's not something that we should have to think about implementing. What I'm trying to say is, I guess, we shouldn't have to think about complete streets. It should become routine, or as should become part of the standards that we use, standards and specifications that we use on every project, and we shouldn't have to push complete streets on just specific ones. It should come up on all projects. Next slide, please. This slide just shows that the traffic fatalities, traffic crashes, as well as fatalities have been increasing in recent years, and with probably a higher proportion of some of our vulnerable users, such as bicyclists and pedestrians. Next. And this graph shows the same thing, what I just mentioned, the higher proportion of pedestrians and cyclists. Next. So what are some factors? We talk about complete streets, and complete streets improve safety for all users. So what are some of the factors that we can look at that affect safety? Go ahead. Okay, obviously, I think we all know that speed is a factor. Speed affects safety for all users, whether it's motor vehicles or especially for pedestrians. This slide just shows what a stark contrast speed can have on a crash, especially for pedestrians. There's a high percentage of survival rate if the vehicle speed is low, with a very low percentage survival rate when speeds are high. Next slide, please. Another factor is number of lanes. So when we have a high number of lanes at an intersection, that's because there's going to be more traffic, a heavier volume of traffic, and that creates a problem for pedestrians when there's a number of lanes, because that makes it more difficult to cross just because of the sheer distance from one side to the other. And not just the distance, but obviously, you having to watch for so much more traffic coming. It's not like where you have a 2-lane roadway. Look, you can look. They say look both ways before you cross. It's not so easy when you have, as this picture shows, maybe 6 or 7 lanes in each direction. Next slide. And I've kind of hit on traffic volume and composition. With the high volumes, that's obviously just more motor vehicular traffic, but also the composition of traffic. What's it made up of? Is all passenger vehicle traffic might not be as difficult, but when you mix in heavy vehicles, trucks, then you have a difference in speeds. Trucks, they can't slow down quite as quickly as passenger vehicles. They can't speed up. So you have that speed differential, which causes problems just within the motor vehicle traffic stream, but also for pedestrians trying to, if they're pedestrians trying to cross, judging speeds, whether it's safe to cross or not. Next. Conflict points. So this just shows a picture of an intersection, which is obviously a conflict point when we're talking about traffic in general, but especially with pedestrians and bicyclists. So you're going to encounter more conflict points at an intersection than you will just on a stretch of roadway. And then within certain intersections, certain intersections have fewer conflict points than others. You might know that, like, roundabouts reduces the conflict points from a signalized intersection from about 32 conflict points down to about 8 conflict points in a roundabout. That's just an example of something we can do to affect safety. Next. This is kind of self-explanatory, visibility and conspicuity, but whether it's vehicles or pedestrians, you want to be visible. So we talk about pedestrians being visible because they're safer if the driver is able to see pedestrians, but also if the vehicles are more visible, that makes it safer for pedestrians also. You might notice in this slide, there's some shadows cast on the ground there. So, there's all kinds of things to consider. In this slide, it shows the shadows where it may make vehicles less visible. And then on the next slide, go ahead. On the next slide, okay, I'm not sure why. I'm not sure. The next slide that I have is shows in the visibility slide. Anyway, talking about visibility, it shows a nighttime. Shows some pedestrians trying to cross the street at night. So nighttime, obviously, you have lighted intersections, lighted roadways, and then unlighted. So obviously, that's something else to consider as far as in terms of visibility. Definitely, lighting helps make everything more visible, but especially important for pedestrians. Proximity. In this slide, we talk. We show a bicyclist in a bike lane. So we provide for bicyclists in several ways. Bicyclists can ride in the traffic in a motor vehicle lane when there's no bicycle facilities present. Sometimes we can stripe for a bicycle lane and not have any delineation. Well, as far as vertical delineation, we'd have a delineation on the pavement, but this slide shows some vertical delineators which provide delineation, not much protection, whereas sometimes you have maybe a grassy strip to provide some offset for bicyclists, which also, while not protection, not physical protection, that barrier or that offset buffer is makes it safer for the bicyclists. Next, please. Pavement condition. So this just shows a delineated bicycle lane, an exclusive bike lane, but we have a manhole here, which just shows that, and this one is probably wide enough for a bicyclist to go around, but still, it doesn't present the safest condition when you have these manholes that are not, that are right in the bike lane. And when they must be there, they could be as smooth as possible, or it appears that this one might not be. So anyway, just something to think about when we're trying to, do things to affect the safety of all users. Next. Next slide. Okay. This just talks about connectivity. So where you can have some of the best facilities that you can think of, but if your facilities are only, half a mile long or a mile long, then what comes at the end of that? What comes at the end of that, bicycle lane or, sidewalk or multi-use trail, things like that. If you don't have good connectivity, which is sometimes, difficult to provide, but where it's possible, we want to have good connectivity at the end of a bike.
You'll be able to review the ERP.
Can you please mute your line? Okay. So, for example, at the end of a bicycle, at the end of a bike lane or some sort of, pedestrian path or anything that vulnerable users use, if you're unable to continue that, then you want to have a good transition, a good safe transition into whatever is provided at the end of that project. Next. Next slide, please. Thank you. So this just lists the different factors that I've talked about. So you have a number there. You have eight different things there that are the primary factors when you're considering complete streets. Next. So who are complete streets for? This slide just basically says complete streets are for everyone. They don't just help one group or one age group or ethnicity group or ability group. It helps all. While we might have a focus on our vulnerable users, it makes it safer for all, even motor vehicle traffic. Next. And this bar graph just shows that more than 80% of the people want complete streets in any age group. Next. So summary of what complete streets provide. I've mentioned safety, obviously. Comfort, that's the feelings, all users feeling safe when they're using the network. Network connectivity, talking about not just having scattered facilities, hit and miss or hodgepodge around, but the more connectivity we have, the better mobility as well as safety we'll have for all users. And equity, it provides equity for lower income communities may have less access to motor vehicles, automobiles. So this provides some equity in giving them facilities that are easier to use and making the network more accessible to them also. Next. So we always think of our vulnerable users, pedestrians and bicyclists, but also transit users, freight delivery, and even motorists, as I mentioned before. But it improves the accessibility, mobility, and safety for all. Next. So what do I mentioned before that complete street, there's really no such thing as a complete street. It's a concept where we want to try to provide accessibility, mobility, safety for all users. But as this slide states, you have to use you have to apply it to the context that you're working with. And one size does not fit all. You know, in a rural area, a complete street's going to look different than an urban or a suburban area. Next. So just there's no magic formula. Okay. This is just an example, a shoulder on a rural road. So this might not look like a complete street, but if there wasn't any shoulder at all before, providing that wide shoulder for bicyclists or pedestrians to use is an improvement over what it had been in the past. If this is what has been added or improved to the facility. Next. Here we show a shared use path. So you have a little better facility. You have a separated facility from motor vehicle traffic with a small buffer between the shared use path and the roadway. Next. This slide just shows some examples. Obviously, you have a crosswalk here for pedestrian use, of course. This shows I think the bicycle lanes on between the parking and the traveled way for motor vehicle traffic, and just an example of what you might see out on a rural road traveling, that an arterial goes through a town. Next. And this mid-block crossing provided for pedestrians in a high-density neighborhood. So obviously, this makes it safer for pedestrians. So you're going to see all kinds of different things. You probably wouldn't see you wouldn't see a mid-block crossing in a rural area where you wouldn't have a block. You would just, you're just out away from a town. You're not in a city block situation, so you wouldn't see that out there. But we, of course, do see that in city situations, have many of them in Georgia. Next. This is an example where not only is the freight delivery truck accommodated because they have parking, but this also obviously makes it helps the mobility. You don't have a delivery truck blocking lanes of traffic, and also makes it safer for pedestrians because they're not having to be as close to the sidewalk or perhaps on the sidewalk. So basically, the delineation and the separation of modes here is something that can increase safety and make it safer, and also smoother travel through the area. Next. This is just an example for how it can improve transit users' experience. You have the bus pull-out area. You don't have a bus having to stop in the travel lane. You also have a shelter there with sidewalk. So you have an offset to where it provides some sense of safety for the transit user. Next. So we talked about providing safety and connectivity, comfort for the users. It provides for all ages, all abilities. It improves the experience and safety for all modes. So Complete Streets is for everyone, and that's what a model Complete Streets policy will provide for all. Next. So this just, I'm not going to go through all these, but just talks about how a model Complete Street policy sets a vision. It includes all users. it's something that's done routinely, and it basically becomes the default approach of a highway department or whoever it is that's designing the roads. Next. So it's just a chance to, think about where does your agency fall in the complete streets concept? What do you do? What does your agency do to address the needs of all these users when you're designing and providing facilities for pedestrians and bicyclists, as well as transit users or any of our vulnerable users that we talked about. Next. So this is I don't know how many of you are familiar with the proven countermeasures that FHWA has been promoting for probably about 15 years now. The original list was about, I believe, 7 to 9, and there's been a couple more lists added since the original list about, like I say, 15 years ago. But some of these icons, logos, just give examples of what we might provide. A lot of these have to do with pedestrians and bicyclists. You have leading pedestrian intervals. You have mid-block crossings, pedestrian signage, and other pedestrian facilities. A roundabout is another. A roundabout doesn't address pedestrians and bicyclists specifically, but it does. But they are their safety is addressed with a roundabout. But a roundabout, does definitely affect the safety of motor vehicular traffic also. Next slide, please. And just some more examples of resources that are out there. Next. So implementation. So what's next as far as how do we implement complete streets on our systems? Next. So just some opportunities with the implementation of complete streets. You can all these things that I've talked about, you could probably do without data, but if you have data, it's desirable to have data, because then you can see what your problem is, and you can better focus the resources you have, monetary resources and other resources. You can know where they're needed most, and it makes it more efficiently use your resources. And as I mentioned before, this is an opportunity to get complete streets into your standard approach to all design, and make it the default approach, not something that's a new idea. We want this to be in every project that going forward. Next. And this is just some some references. There some resources that can be used. Shows some of FHWA's guidance documents, complete street specific, as well as just other things, speed management, safe systems approach, that all tie into making safety a priority and improving safety for all users. Next. And these are just a list of some informational videos that are out there. Next. So I kind of went through it sort of fast. If you have any questions, I'd be glad to answer anything you might have. I think that's the last. Was that the last slide?
Yes, that was the last one.
Okay, thanks. So if there's any questions,
there is a question in the chat, Greg.
all right.
One of the key challenges is the need for additional right-of-way, and that triggers EJ and historic preservation compliance. What are your thoughts on that?
Okay, so my thoughts is that's a good comment, and I'm not trying to sidestep the question, but I guess that's done on a case-by-case basis. Whereas in my job as a safety engineer, I work closely with our environmental specialists in FHWA office. And I really, as far as handling it, it's it's just like every project. Every project has advantages and disadvantages to everything that you implement, and there's trade-offs. And I think as long as we, follow the regulatory requirements, and as I stated at the beginning, this complete streets policy, this is not a policy, but these complete streets concepts, they're not requirements, but we want to provide the best we can within the regulatory statutes that are out there. So obviously we must follow regulation. And as long as we follow regulation, as far as, the EJ things like that, the environmental requirements, then we provide as much as we can, as in the complete streets realm. I don't know if that's probably not a great answer, but like I say, it's almost a project by project basis, how to answer how we would address those issues. Hope that makes some sense.
Any additional questions?
I tried to talk fast so I could get through it. Hopefully I didn't talk too fast.
Questions?
All right. Well, thank
All
you
right.
all.
Thank you, Greg. We appreciate you.
And I guess, I don't know if anyone has questions later on. My contact information was obviously in the presentation. I don't know if you're going to provide the presentation to the attendees. You can. You're welcome to do that if you would like.
Thank you so much. And thank you for being here today.
No problem.
Appreciate
Thank you.
Okay, we're going to switch gears and go to our next presenter, Mr. Patrick Bradshaw, who is from the Atlanta Regional Commission.
Hey, thank you. Quick AV check. Can everybody hear me and see me?
Yes.
Yes.
Excellent. All right. Half the battle. Hey, so again, I really appreciate, getting the opportunity to come here and talk about the LAP program in terms of how it relates to ARC and more specifically the Metropolitan Planning Organization component of ARC. But today what we're going to talk about is just a quick overview of ARC and the MPO that we host for the Atlanta region, how we select projects for the Transportation Improvement Program, the TIP, which is what I administer, and a quick role of the LAP program and how that plays into selecting projects and maintaining projects in the TIP once they're in. So next slide, please. Okay, so this is the busy map of the Atlanta region. So ARC hosts a number of different planning functions. So we host the Area Agency on Aging. We host the Metropolitan North Georgia Water District, the Regional Commission for the Atlanta area, but more importantly, at least in my biased opinion, the Metropolitan Planning Organization for the Atlanta urbanized area. So as you can see on the slide there, it's 20 counties, and at last count, it's about, I'd say 100 cities. It seems to grow every year. And I've also lost count of the number of CIDs. So a lot of moving parts to this region. I think only Texas has more counties than we do, so it's to be expected. So we're responsible for carrying out the metropolitan planning process, and specifically 3 big deliverables for that process are the UPWP, which is the Unified Planning Work Program, the Long Range Regional Transportation Plan. Some agencies just call that the MTP, we call it the RTP, And the TIP, so the Transportation Improvement Program. And that's my role here at ARC. I help administer the TIP. And currently we're running a 2020 through 2025 TIP for the Atlanta region. Next slide, please. So how do we build this TIP out? We have an open project call. We do that about every 2 years. And it's just an open call for transportation project proposals to be funded from one of the funding pots that traditionally MPOs are given program authority over. So in the past, that's been the Surface Transportation Block Grant Program, the urban suballocation for the large urbanized areas, the Transportation Alternative Set Aside of that, and the CMAQ, the Congestion Mitigation and Air Quality Program, which we cooperate with the Georgia Department of Transportation to administer. With IIJA, we now have several other programs. I think the big one is the Carbon Reduction Program that we will likely also directly coordinate with Gdot to administer that program. So really excited about the new transportation bill and the new funding opportunities that it gives us. So, but anyway, these TIP solicitations are open to state agencies, so GDOT can apply, GRETA, other state agencies, the Georgia Regional Transportation Authority, counties, all those cities and the CIDs that I mentioned earlier. Once we get applications in, we take them through an evaluation process, and we'll make staff recommendations to our MPO policy body. And for ARC, that's the Transportation Air Quality Committee, or TAQC. So this is a competitive evaluation process, and the big takeaway here is it gives us a firm process to identify and support projects that are consistent with the long-range plan and implement the policy goals of that plan, as well as our board, who we are accountable to. So next slide, please. So we have a process, an open project call that we solicit proposals for. How do we take those proposals and determine whether or not they're a good fit, for our long-range plan? We've got a whole evaluation framework that we developed for that. So it just outlines, as you can see here, how projects are going to be appraised for their accordance with board policy, as well as give us a chance to compare project performance across different applications, both for the same project types and across project types. So it's really helpful there. And what's really good about it is it's just gives a good, transparent view to all of our stakeholders and customers on how project proposals are going to be graded by ARC staff. So it's useful for cities and counties that are directly applying for these funds. A lot of times they can crack open this document. It's about 100 pages, but it's readable enough. It'll give them an idea of whether or not, they want to go ahead and apply on their own with staff resources, or maybe, for some of the smaller jurisdictions, they'll solicit consultant help. And if they do solicit consultant help to fill out the application, the consultants also have access to the same document. They can crack it open, and it just helps everybody know what they're getting into and craft really competitive applications that will help, again, forward those policy goals that we have for the Atlanta region. So I'm pretty proud of this document. It's organized around a key decision point structure, which we'll get into in just a minute. And if you're curious and you want to look at that resource and download it, or any of the other resources we have for our project solicitation program, you can see it at this website at the bottom. So it's atlantaregional.org/tip solicitation. Next slide, please. Okay, so here's the evaluation process, quick flow chart. So it starts out with a open universal call for project proposals. We'll then start, we have an online application. We'll start collecting applications through that portal. We'll close the window, and then we'll take it through this KDP structure. So key decision point 1 is just a filter. So it filters out applications that are 100% incompatible with policy framework. KDP, so if something fails one of those key decision point or one of those KDP 1 filters, it will no longer be evaluated and just be kicked back out. If you get past that, KDP2 just measures the performance against the policy framework. So we're able, after it goes through this process, to take all of our bike ped projects, for instance, and rank them from most competitive to least competitive. We can also rank those projects across different project categories. So develop allows us to develop benefit cost ratios that we can compare, say, a highway project to a bike ped project based on just how cost efficient it is. So it's very helpful there. And KDP3, those are the final factors that we look at. So the applicant's stated priority if they submit multiple applications, cost effectiveness, regional equity, and project delivery. And deliverability is key. So we'll go into that in the next slide. But before we leave, actually, just pay attention to that KDP1. So it filters out applications incompatible with the policy framework. And one of the policy framework filters for KDP1 is whether or not it's an eligible project. So keep that in mind in the back of your head as we go on to the next slide, please. Okay, so LAP status, or locally administered project status, in the application process. So for infrastructure projects specifically, if a local government isn't LAP certified, we consider that project ineligible for federal funding, and we will not award funds to that project application. We'll evaluate it and we'll give it a score. And we will work continuously with the applicant, to let them know, hey, go, talk to our buddy Malik over at Gdot, and they will get you settled on, get you on path to getting your LAP certification. But that is a strong do not pass go for funding from ARC through our tip solicitation process, because it's a huge red flag and a risk for deliverability. But staff, we continuously work with local jurisdictions to encourage them to set aside, one staffer and have him or her go take the coursework and just be dedicated to, being the point of contact for federal aid process projects. And it's not just during the application process. Just about any time we reach out and, catch up with a local jurisdiction, whether that be a city or a county, we make sure that, we pull the list down from Gdot's helpful website. If we notice that they're coming up on a deadline to renew, we let them know. Sometimes these things can fall between the cracks, but we try our best to keep them abreast of that, because again, this makes them just more competitive for different opportunities, including, federal opportunities for funding. And but again, it's just kind of a due diligence filter for us as well. Because if this isn't something that a county or a city has looked into and has handled, it's more than likely they're not going to be very successful carrying a project through the federal aid process. So it also serves as sort of an unofficial kind of project readiness filter for us. So next slide, please. Okay, so what's the role of LAP status for existing projects? So as before, anytime we talk to a sponsor with, if they're maintaining their TIP project, if they need to do an amendment or an admin mod, we'll frequently pick up the phone and call them, talk to them. But if we notice that, they're lapsing or about to lapse, that's something that we'll point out. But that's another kind of stop, do not go past this point issue, because oftentimes, I think actually all the time, if a sponsor loses their LAP certification, there's certain there's certain project activities in the plan development process that will just not be authorized if they don't have LAP certification. So this is something that we keep track of on a regular basis, because that's a deliverability risk for us too. If a sponsor loses LAP certification, we can't get funding authorized for a specific activity, we'll have to find a new home for those funds and shift things around in the TIP. So it's something we keep an eye on, definitely. But again, it's crucial to have at least one staffer on board that understands the process. So we completely understand, and it makes sense, because without this program, which we're pretty grateful for, a region like ours would have a tough time delivering the federal aid program because Georgia Department of Transportation couldn't possibly keep up with 20 county, the 20 counties and 100 cities in our region if none of them were LAP certified and didn't administer the project, some of their projects on their own. So it's been very helpful. Just want to give kudos to Malik and Gdot for their excellent work on the website and keeping the statuses up to date and working with us throughout the tip solicitation process that we run every 2 years. So we go to the next slide, and that's all I have for today. And I'd be happy to take any questions or answer any questions if they were left in the chat.
Thank you, Patrick. And we do have a couple of questions in the chat. First one is, do you allow applications for studies as well as projects? If so, how do you handle ranking the studies against the projects?
We do have a studies, actually a standalone studies application that we run. And sometimes when a sponsor submits an application for an infrastructure project that maybe it's not quite ready for prime time, in other words, it's not quite ready to be put into the plan development process as an infrastructure project, we'll convert that to, say, a feasibility or a scoping study. But we do have a standalone study application that they can take it through. And we do have, if you look at that project evaluation framework document, it does have a section in there that outlines exactly how studies in the tip solicitation are ranked. Typically, we will take a study application and rank it a little bit separately, consider it separately from, say, a infrastructure application if a sponsor has multiple, so like 2 or 3 infrastructure applications and 2 or 3 study applications, because they are separate applications. But again, if say a sponsor, their number one priority was a study and everything else was second, third, and fourth, we take that priority ranking into account as to whether we'd fund one versus the other or in which order. So I hope that answers your question. And let me see if I can.
And the second question is how ARC handles and manages required local matching for federal funds, and what local matching resources are available to ARC?
So ARC doesn't collect funding at all, for TIP projects and infrastructure projects, but certainly local governments have access to their own property tax, bond funding, sales taxes are pretty huge. We have a special purpose local option sales tax for transportation specifically, and just a SPLOST in general. So we have those 2 funding mechanisms that are available to counties and cities. And just whatever non-federal funding sources that the local jurisdictions can scrape together, that's perfectly fine and acceptable for use. But ARC ourselves, we don't have access to a dedicated funding stream that we can match funds directly to. You probably heard earlier today, I can't remember who was talking about it, but Georgia Department of Transportation, of course, they have a lot of different non-federal match sources. The biggest one is the source of funding that comes from House Bill 170, so motor fuel excise taxes, as well as state bonds and other mechanisms.
Other questions? Going once, going twice. Patrick, we appreciate you.
Thank you.
Thank you for your information. You have a great afternoon.
Thank you. You too.
And next we have Janice coming back with a video that we've recently produced to help local agencies with their compliance audits. And Janice, whenever you're ready.
Okay, right now we will play the lab audit video. It pretty much gives you instructions or a walkthrough or pretty much what to expect whenever you become or are picked to be audited. So whenever it's up on the screen, it will play. And Please save all your questions until the end. Thank you.
Wright. I'm the District Planning and Programming Liaison for District 2 Tennille for Gdot. And this is a presentation on our Local Administered Projects LAP program and how you can be better prepared for your LAP compliance audit. These are some of the contacts for the LAP program team. These people will be listed in your LAP manual as well as your FHWA Georgia Division. Contact Neosha Lawhorn, our Gdot OPC, Office of Program Control Administrator Bobby Hilliard, Gdot LAP Coordinator Malik Alkush, and our Jacobs Gdot LAP Team Manager Janice Gibson. As a resource, we have the LAP webpage. That information is on our www.dot.ga.gov website. It's our external website. And if you go under Business and Government and go down to Local Government, you will see the Local Administered Projects link there for LAP. And that has a wealth of information as far as your different contacts and the different aspects of the LAP program and the requirements. This is the homepage of the LAP webpage. And as you can see there, there's a star. There's a link at the top that has the LAP manual, which you receive in your training. And then the different resources as far as the application, whether it's the recertification, the certification application, the different procurement, the training, all of that sort of stuff is found here. Now there's the red star here. Each local government is assigned to a district, and we have added a map. And what this is the state of Georgia. It's our 7 different districts, and that's what Gdot is divided into. I'm in District 2 in Tennille, in the middle Georgia area here in the pink, and I cover 27 counties. So depending on the county that you are assigned to or that your local government is in, you will have a contact, and that person was listed here. And that is also in your LAP manual. So for instance, for Washington County, I cover Washington County, I'm in District 2. So I would be your point of contact. This is the LAP Audit Compliance Report. This is a fairly new process that we have utilized, and this is to better equip local government and Gdot and the project managers and different aspects of the team to work together to make sure that all of the rules and regulations for FHWA and Gdot compliance are monitored and are on schedule and followed as they are required. This is just a overview of what it looks like, and we'll go into the several different portions of the application, the review form, and what is expected of the local government. Now here is the front page, page 1, and this basically has all of your project information. So this would include your project sponsor, whatever city or municipality that you are assigned to, and the project description, whether it's a streetscape or intersection improvement, or whatever type of project that would be, the description would go there. The city, the county, the data review is the actual review that the date that the audit is completed on. The federal project number, you may or may not have that. What we go by is the state project number, and that is also known as a PI number. That is the project identifier for that specific project. So then you have your different project type, where is it located, different districts. Like I said, I'm in District 2, those will change depending on your municipality. What phase is the LPA, the local public agency? What are you responsible for? What are you administering? Is it preliminary engineering, which is also referred to as PE? Is it right of way? Is it construction? It could be some, it could be all. Each project is different. And this also is the project type. Your district pre-construction planning liaison, that you may also hear us called a DPPC, DPPE, engineer coordinator or liaison. That is your district GDOT contact. The LPA full-time responsible charge representative and the alternate, this is your certified person. So if you have somebody that is helping as a project manager or a team lead of some sort, that person does not need to be listed unless they are the responsible charge that is certified for LAP. Several times I'll go and try to make contact to schedule an audit, and the person that has done the bulk of the work or assisting with it will want to, sit in on the audit or attend the audit. That's fine, but the person that is certified is the one that must be in the audit, because you are ultimately responsible for those responsibilities. Then we name out any agents, any attendees for the agency, whether it is different GDOT personnel as far as maybe a project manager. My supervisor sometimes will sit in, sometimes it may be an LAP, the coordinator, FHWA may sit in. We just want to make sure that we capture whoever is in attendance. And then the meeting location place, that typically in the last year and a half has been held through Microsoft Teams. I have worked with Zoom as needed. In the past, though, I have gone and met with local governments in office. So it just depends on the actual location. Then whether or not a field site visit takes place, that's a yes or no question that should be answered. Total cost, that comes from your cost estimate, and then the date of your last GDOT LAP audit for this project. So notice here it says GDOT LAP audit. That would be whether or not your DPPL came out and audited your project and there was some findings of non-compliance, or it could be a different stage of the project, whether it's preliminary engineering, right-of-way, construction. Expect to be audited several times. And that is not a negative thing. That is just trying to make sure that we all stay on the same page and all of the requirements are met. Now, the date of the last FHWA local program review audit, that comes from Federal Highway, and that is not through my office as far as, or your other district representative. LAP certification requirements. All items must be verified with file documentation. You have to provide comments if they are applicable. What that means is I need number 1 and number 2. I need your LAP certification or recertification application. I need to see that it's on file and the acceptance letter that shows how long that certification is good for. It's good for 3 years, but when does that expire? How are the project files organized? Again, it's very important that you keep them in a easily accessible area, whether it's a server that, a person that has the ability to access it if you are out of the office, or if it's hard copy, making sure that those files are in order as far as don't bring in a big box with everything dumped in it and nothing's organized. It's just stressful for the local government and for the person that's doing your audit. If there are any changes in your organization chart, you're going to make sure that you let the LAP coordinator and your district contact know within 30 days, because we need a compliance plan. And what that means is I need to know what that change is. If your certified person goes to another local government, that certification is tied to that person. Yes, it is for your county or local government, but that person is the one that completed the application. That person is the one that completed the training, and that certification is no longer valid. So now that's when if you have a second person or another responsible charge, an alternate that is certified, that is what helps you stay in compliance and helps you continue to move the project along. Now, I need a organization chart as it pertains to LAP certification, like if it's your procurement person that's changed, what are you going to do to make sure that the procurement plan is still valid? Is it still approved? What are you going to do to maintain your agreement with Gdot and FHWA on getting this project along through the life of the project the way it's supposed to be? So you need to make sure that you're aware that that is a very, very important thing. That is not something that needs to come up at an audit or at recertification or certification time. Is there a copy on file of the City Council or County Commission approved procurement policy? Number 5, if you are certified or recertified and have been so in the last, I don't know, since 2020, December 2020, you know that the procurement policy has changed. We have introduced a new training program that is procurement specific. It is imperative that anybody that is going to do any procurement functions attend the training and that they are listed within the procurement policy. These are the top 5 things that I find that cause an issue in an audit. Now, whether or not you're doing a certification or a recertification here, the certification is if you have never been certified before and you are wanting to be certified in Local Administered Project certification. This is a generic type application. It is your understanding. It is whether or not you have the required training, whether or not you have the personnel that can complete the requirements for your Local Administered Projects program. Your recertification happens every 3 years, and now you need to make sure that you have all training is kept current, because your training that you take is good for 3 years, but that doesn't mean that it coincides with your certification process. So you may have taken the training in January and your certification runs out in September or vice versa, but you need to make sure that you have everything active and current within that 3-year time frame. So your recertification also is a little more detailed because it gives you an opportunity to show how your local government and the responsible charge has followed the requirements for LAP, and also what projects that you have, have you stayed on schedule? Are your different parts of the moving pieces for the timeline? All of that information is in there, and we'll go through part of that on the audit, which helps you with your recertification. This is your acceptance letter I talked about earlier. Used to, you would get an email and it would state that you're approved, your local government's approved, who is approved for certification, but now we have an actual acceptance letter. Here is your org chart we talked about. If you see here, you've got your mayor, your city council. Usually they're responsible for your approval of your procurement plan. What else? Your city manager, is this your person that is your certified LAP person? Does your city manager help with something? It just depends on what responsibility that person in your local government has as it pertains to the org chart. So if any of these things change and it pertains to the LAP process, then you will need to make sure you do the compliance plan. That is in your manual. This goes over just your certification requirements. I won't go through this in detail. This is part of your training that you get when you take LAP training. And this goes over your file management system, what is expected, what needs to be in there. And that goes through your contracts, your documents. So anything that you would receive from a project manager, from FHWA, or from Gdot, you want to make sure you have those on file. This is the local public agency letterhead. It's a sample letter that we have. And this is about the compliance plan that we talked about a few minutes ago. And it lists out the different things that could be in your compliance plan as to what will it take to bring you back into compliance, whether it is, here's my PDP, which is the plan development process training certification, the certificate that I completed because it is within the window that it needed to be done with that 3 years, just whatever it is, it's listed there. That is a Word document that you can manipulate to suit whatever your needs are. This is the procurement plan. This is, as you can see, a very detailed document. It is a very restricted document. What we want to make sure is that you are following your FHWA and Gdot requirements as it pertains to local administered projects funding. So there are different ways that you can go about procurement. You can have your own policy, but it has to make sure that it allows for the Brooks Act. You have to make sure that you're following all the requirements. A lot of times local governments will adopt our Gdot policy, and what that entails is any of them to get through procurement, you've got to take the required training. But then if you decide to adopt our template letter of agreement, then it outlines who are the responsible charge. It has to go through approval through the mayor, city council, board of commissioners, whoever your governing authority for that type of purchase and procurement is. And then it goes through the procurement process for review. You may get contacted by procurement for additional questions and understanding. You just want to make sure that you know that just because someone's done a really good job for you in the past, you don't get to just go ahead and award that to them. You have to follow bidding and award process, everything to the letter to make sure you don't jeopardize any of your funding. This is a whole training, so it's, I think, a day, maybe a day and a half, I'm not sure, but it is very detailed towards that plan. This is the adoption letter that I just talked about, and it is in with your documents that you get and all of those training opportunities that we have for LAP, and it just goes into additional detail on those items that I talked about just a second ago. Now, we're ready to go into the audit. So the preliminary engineering, this is the beginning phases. This is design, this is environmental, this is right-of-way, this is the beginning part of your project. It is imperative that you keep up with any environmental type documents that you get, keep them in the correct files and folders. And these questions are pretty self-explanatory. I will say that if there's any public involvement undertaken, like a PIOH, which is a public information open house, or a hearing open house, those items would have to be like your legal advertisements, what made the determination that public involvement was needed, was there flyers, any of that sort of thing. That is what number 2 is talking about, and you will keep that information separate as well, because I will need to see the legal ads and make sure that everyone was made aware of the opportunity. If a reevaluation is required, you will know, because you will get that information from the Federal Highway Gdot, your project manager. If there's any project change for local termini that would have required approval, that means if you were doing sidewalks, something happened and you decided to change that design and go across the other side of the road, then that could possibly be, or very likely be, a change in logical termini. And that's very important, that you don't make any changes to design or plans without approval and without going through the proper channels, because it can jeopardize your funding. The green sheet, that is an environmental sheet that has all your commitments, whether or not they've been met. Just depends on where you are in the project as to, we go through these several different parts of the audit form here. The environmental certification, was it received? There is a letter there that you will get, and whether or not it was according to schedule. Sometimes environmental, depending on what is out there, it can impact the schedule. And if a project change request form has to be made where the change in the schedule happens, you will know. You will get that information from the project manager. You will be working with them on that. And if there are changes, it's not necessarily a good or bad or thing. It just depends. But you will answer yes or no, and then you'll explain as to what happened, and then we'll go from there. If the project is designed by consultants, this is what I was talking about earlier, they have to be pre-qualified by Gdot. That is on our external website. And just because someone's done a very good job for you in the past, unless they are employed full-time by the local government, which is very rare for some of my smaller local government entities, you will be utilizing a consultant. So you need to make sure that you follow the process as far as making sure that the bids are advertised and everyone's given the correct opportunity to bid on this project. Monthly invoices, those will go through the local government and your project manager for reimbursement. Any project change request forms that I talked about earlier, that could be the let date changing for the let to construction or a change in right of way, anything like that. You will have a form and it will have it on there. You will also be able to see, and with discussion with the project manager, how long that took as far as how did it push it out 6 months? Was it a month? You know, what was the duration there? Any utility certification, that is also a form that you will get from Gdot. This is just a form. We were talking about the environmental and the green sheet earlier, a categorical exclusion. That is typically what we have with these type projects. And this is just an example of what one may look like. A reevaluation is a detailed document, and that also comes through Gdot, through your project manager. And as you can see, Eric Duff here, our state environmental administrator, and all of those evaluation components are listed in that document. This is a green sheet. It's just a environmental resource impact table, or an ERIT, but it is typically called or referred to as a green sheet. An environmental certification, this is that everything is signed off on, environmental is certified, it has gone through the process, and a date will be on there saying when it was certified, and that is the date that we put into the form. This is what utility certification looks like. You may or may not have utilities on your project. If so, you will have the utility certification form to go by. The date of FHWA authorization, that is a form, and I will show you that on, I'll go ahead and show it here. That is a work authorization, and you can see here the renewed and recorded, or the date of authorization, June 22nd of 2015. Was for this project here, and it will have your project number here. You can see this was actually in Richmond County, but the project number, the PI number that we talked about earlier, will be associated there. That is specifically for that project. And this also, you will see down in here, it gives you some additional information on the type of project, the program type that we talked about on page 1, your reconstruction, rehab, and intersection improvement. So a lot of information comes from those forms. So that was number 11. A lot of people don't know what those look like until I show it to them and say, this is it. And they're, oh yeah, well, I have that. So that's the FHWA authorization. The date of the bid advertisement, you will have that information, the bid opening, and the date of award. You will keep up with all of that. The notice to proceed to the contractor, that is a form you will also have. When did the DOT PM, the project manager, issue the notice to proceed? All of these dates, you will have these forms, and that is what we pull the dates off of. If the project is advertised in the newspaper, bulletins on your, where it says internet, if it's on your homepage, please take a screenshot, or if it stays up forever once you have it put up, that's fine, but that is also something I may ask, like if you say we advertised it online, then where? Show it to me on, is it something that is live that you can pull up now? Or is it a screenshot with a date on there as to how long it was displayed? A bid analysis, was it performed by the LG, which is the local government, number 18? Did Gdot review the tabulation of bids and recommend the apparent low bidder? Now, low bidder is usually for, obviously for construction. Low bidder is not for design. This was prior to request for FHWA concurrence. Also, please be reminded here, these items 7, 18, and 19, 17, 18, and 19, when you start with the tabulation of bids and your analysis and your reviews, please make sure that you keep your individual score sheets and the person that did the scoring to attach to those tabulation and those charts, because you will need those for procurement. That is one of the main things they're asking, making sure everything is done in accordance of FHWA requirements and above board. And it also is important when you do your certification or recertification. This is a screenshot of a local newspaper with your public notice, your bid advertisement. You want to make sure that you keep those on file as well. This is the notice to proceed that we talked about earlier, your construction authorization, and your effective date here. This is a bid sheet. I know this is a lot of information I'm kind of throwing at you right now, but just wanted to give you an idea so that whenever you come up to these portions on the audit, you say, oh, okay, well, I've seen that before. I know what that is. These are also out on our DOT homepage under the Construction Bidding Administration. There's additional information there. Now, right of way, here we have, do you have a district right of way local government coordinator? Yes, just like I'm assigned to District 2, I cover my 27 counties. There is a district right of way local government coordinator for District 2. And your person will be listed here. You will know this person because they will be in contact with you throughout the life of your project, making sure that everything is taken care of. If you are taking care of right of way for your local government, then they are making sure that all of the requirements are being followed. If there's a statement regarding the status of right of way, utility, and railroad, that was, remember a few minutes ago when I showed you the utility form and the certification for environmental saying that it was certified, then that also is a statement for right of way and utility and railroad if needed. If there's any property acquisition discussions with owners before NEPA document approval or appraisal completion, it is important that you answer this one correctly, and that is in your right-of-way training that is in conjunction with, I believe, Title 6. So make sure that you follow all right-of-way protocol as far as contact with any property owners with FHWA requirements in Gdot. Was right-of-way certification received per the schedule? Again, sometimes it depends. The schedule can fluctuate. This is where I would make my comments here as to if it changed, why, and what was done to make sure that everything stayed on track. There's your right-of-way certification letter. Now, when we get into construction, this is a new, you can see here at the bottom where it was, the audit was revised in November of 2021. We went back, I say we, but the LAP coordinating committee actually went back and reviewed the construction requirements and added some extra stuff in there, just making sure that everything is above board, just going through the process. The OMAT LAP form is it on file? It is out there on our website for you to use. Any notice to proceeds, making sure they are on file. The contracts, keeping in mind that there's a contract between the local government and the contractor, and there's also a contract between Gdot and the local government, making sure that those contracts are on file. The FHWA 1273 provisions, Buy America, all of these things are self-explanatory. Is the MC checklist, along which is the material certification and test reports on file. It is imperative that whenever you have construction, that your inspections are done according to Gdot and FHWA requirements, because I cannot stress to you how important it is to be able to make sure that you have those documents and reports on file so that you can be reimbursed. We have had in the past problems with local government not following the process and not being able to be reimbursed for a substantial amount of money. Subcontractor approval requests, make sure they're on file. If there's a consultant hired for inspection or is it Gdot inspection. Project field records. Now, these are daily work reports, something that may be your, what used to be called a diary, that sort of thing. Making sure that it supports any quantities that are submitted for payments. Make sure your invoices are on file. Most local governments will keep a spreadsheet with the invoice and the work orders and task orders, that sort of thing, linked together. Appropriate wage rates, making sure that your payrolls and statements of wages paid, that they are as they are supposed to be, and making sure that any DBE that you have, any kind of EEO type stuff, that you have that exactly the way it is supposed to be. This is what I was talking about just a second ago about your LPA, your local public agency and Gdot contract, and then the contract between the local public agency and the contractor. Make sure that when you have these contracts that you look at both of them. Make sure that any DBE that you have, any kind of numbers on there, that they are correct. Don't have on here that your DBE is a certain percentage with your LPA and contractor contract, and then the one for Gdot LPA does not match. It is imperative that you make sure that these documents match up. This is just another picture of your FHWA 1273 and your Buy America provision. Your field and lab report, your material certification. And then that's the checklist, the materials checklist that we talked about just a second ago. This goes over the DBE things that I talked about, making sure that your percentage, your goal, make sure it's reached. If it was not reached, why? You know, your monthly DBE reports, any labor interviews and cuffs. It is this section here, 13 to 17. Make sure that those are in line with your payrolls and your contracts. There's your DBE report. Labor interviews, your commercially useful function, also called a cuff. And then this goes through your erosion control measures and the different contractor type items, any project schedule milestones that may have been met or not met. If you have a subcontractor issue or the project has a delay, if it's weather, if there are any type of issue, when you start seeing an issue with one of your contractors or it looks like your schedule is not being adhered to the way it's supposed to, you need to be in contact with your Gdot project manager. Make sure that these milestones for construction are being met. If they are not, then clear documentation as to why, because as you know, with LAP, any federal funds, those are fiscally constrained, and you've got to make sure that you adhere to these guidelines and schedules, or you have a very large chance of jeopardizing your funding. Any contract modifications. And then this is the end of the slide presentation. In summary, The main thing that I have issues with is the project files and the way that they are maintained. It is so much easier if, as you go along with it, you keep those in the correct file location, whether it is pre-construction or right-of-way, environmental. Keep those all in separate files for the specific category that they are assigned to, instead of having to dig through this huge file that you've just dumped everything into. It makes it so much easier for everyone when it comes time for the audit. The LAP webpage, that is the first thing that we looked at, the dot.ga.gov, going under your government section there. It has the manual, any updates, anytime that you're getting ready to do your procurement policy or anything like that, go out there and look at your templates and make sure that they have not been revised. If you have any questions, please reach out to your district planning and programming liaison. That would be myself. I'm Ellen Wright in District 2 and Tennille, which is Middle Georgia, but we have District 1, which covers Gainesville. District 3 is the Thomaston area. District 4 is our Tifton area. District 5 is Jessup. 6 is Cartersville, and 7 is our Metro Atlanta area. Those people were listed at the beginning, and they are also on the web page. We would be your subject matter experts and the best source for answering questions. If we cannot answer your questions, of course, we will reach out and find those questions, the answers to those questions for you. That's what we're here for, is to help you. Audits don't have to be a bad thing. They really don't. It's just to make sure that we all can keep the process flowing the way it's supposed to, and to make sure that when we get to the end or get to a certain part that we're doing everything we're supposed to do, there's no holdup, and you don't have to worry about waiting on your reimbursement. So that's what I have for you today. It's a lot of information, I understand, but you have plenty of resources out there to help you. Go back to your manual, go back to your training PowerPoints, and just be familiar with the process. And good luck.
Very good. Janice, you were in to chime in?
I was going to ask anyone if they had any questions.
Before we get to the questions, I may can cover some of the questions that I saw in the chat, but I want to say these things first. When it comes to the audit, as you see, it is very thorough. It is very well laid out, and Gdot is your advocate for the audit. Let me explain that. If you remember the presentation by the Office of Program Delivery with Ms. Kimberly Nesbitt, it talked about the project manager, and it talked about having a federal compliance checklist. That checklist is done by the project manager. That is not done by our Office of OPC, which is the LAP audit compliance. They're two different processes, but that process is the checklist. So it prepares you, no matter what phase that you're in, as you're going through your project. The Gdot project manager is preparing you with that particular checklist to make sure that by the time we come along with the LAP audit, that all your files should be in place, that there aren't any snags. So it should be pretty easy whenever Janice or myself or Federal Highway or the district planning and programming liaison person schedules your audit. And because we've been in the virtual world and using this platform through MS Teams, the actual audit form itself is sent out in advance from the district planning and programming liaison. And they actually have, most of the time, we have like a pre-audit, which we'll send you that form. If you have any questions, it's sent out about a week or two in advance. If you're unfamiliar with the process, we answer preliminary questions so that we can kind of help you be ready to be your advocate when we actually proceed with the MS Teams audit or in-person audit. The other thing is that as we're developing LAPS, which is our online application process, once that's fully developed and laid out, all these things would eventually go into that application process, and on that, and you can access it within that system. So as we further develop the program, all the things that you need access to, you will be made available to you. Right now, we don't have the online application. It's coming hopefully before the end of this fiscal year, but all those things will be accessible to you in time. And I'll yield because I know Janice probably has some things, and I'll yield to Ms. Jackson if there are any other questions in the chat.
I think the questions in the chat have been addressed by Maria and Janice, and I think and Ellen, I think everyone's been addressing most of those questions as they came up. But Janice, it's on you.
I just want everyone to remember that an audit is not a bad thing. It is just to make sure everything is in its rightful place and that you guys remain within compliance. You know, we want you to be able to keep the funding that you were granted. So this is the purpose of us coming out for an audit. So during the auditing process, when we do reach out and schedule that audit, you have the right to call us and ask us questions, you know, to ask, you know, maybe you might not be able to identify the document or understand what we're asking, and we'll be able to help you with that. So an audit is not a bad thing. It's just to make sure that you guys have everything ready. So if Federal Highway comes out to give you an audit, then you're ready. So, you know, like I said, I'm here to assist you. Your DPPL is also there to assist you as well. So, thank you.
Are there any other questions? We hope that video has helped you answer some of the questions you may have had along the way. And thank you, Ellen Wright, for being our host for that video. You did a fabulous job, as we knew you would. And we're going to move on to our awards section. Yes, I said awards. You guys, we appreciate your attendance today. We appreciate your questions and active involvement today. And everyone in attendance will get a certificate of attendance that bears the FHWA and Gdot logo. And we do appreciate you. And I want to introduce Mr. B. Hopkins, who's on camera right now. He's going to go through some of the additional awards that we have. I think you're on mute, Lee.
I'm talking away too. Thanks, everybody. I just want to say that's a great segue into our awards category. As you know, like everybody kept saying, audits can be scary. However, the first award that we're giving out is some of the local municipalities that did a successful audit in FY 21 and 22. So, you know, this shows that this can be done. We're here to help, and we're partnering with our local agencies to try to make sure that this program is successful for both GDOT and FHWA. So the first award, we're going to start with District 1 for successful audit FY 21-22. The first award goes to Gwinnett County. The second award, next slide, please, Alex, goes to City of Norcross. The next award would go to Forsyth County. And our last award for District 1 would go to City of Beaufort. That was a great participation, and we really appreciate your hard work and making sure you were successful in the audits for FY 21 and 22. For District 2, if you go to the next slide, we have Newton County. Next slide, please, Alex. We have Columbia County. And last slide, please, Alex. We have Augusta and Richmond County. Thank you for your participation in District 2. We really appreciate you coming forward and really helping make these audits successful as well. For District 3, we have Coweta County. We have Henry County. We have Fayette County is next. Next slide, please. We have Columbia Muscogee County. And last but not least, for District 3, we have City of Newton. Thank you for your participation again. Great work. And we wish to see you in FY 22-23 Q2. Next slide, please, Alex, for District 4. For District 4, you know, they have the smallest program right now, but we were able to provide an award for City of Thomasville for helping us out. Really thank you for your hard work. And know sometimes being the only recipient that's doing an LAP audit, you know, it's kind of, I want to say mind-boggling, but it does show that it can be done in small towns and city and county. So just make sure that, you know, you're putting in for your funds and trying to use the LAP funding for what it was made for, to help present projects to your local constituents. Next. For District 5, we have City of Jessup and City of Hinesville. Go to District 6 for me, please, Alex. District 6, we have Paulding County and City of Dallas. And last but not least, for District 7, we have City of East Point, City of Conyers, Rockdale County, and Cobb County. And last but not least, we have DeKalb County for District 7. So as you can see, throughout the LAP audits, we pick both city and county. So it was just always picking the smaller cities to do the audits on. We tried to make it evenly across the board. Thanks, Alice. Can you go to the next award section, please? You got successful audits up again. Thank you, sir. So the next award goes to the most LAP to attend lap training in FY21. So in first place, we have Columbus Consolidated Government. We want to thank you for your participation in the lap program, and thank you for helping sending the most people to training. That means you're trying to make sure not only that you have a first and second attendee, that you got other people that understand the program as well. Next slide, please, Alex. Second place go to City of Atlanta. Thank you for sending in personnel as well. Basically, again, this helped make sure that we're training the right people within your agency to make sure that we able to deliver the program and you understand which way the program is going. Next slide, please, Alex. Most LAP, same one.
That's PDP training.
Yes, sorry. Most LAPs to attend the PDP training in 2021, again, is Columbus Consolidated Government. Thank you for sending your personnel. Second side, Alex. And second place goes to the City of Sandy Springs. Again, City of Sandy Springs has been a great partner, especially here in District 7 and completing projects. Next slide was Alex. So we also wanted to give awards to what we call the new kids on the block, people who just got certified at LAP. First award go to City of Madison. Want to thank you for coming aboard and joining the LAP program. It's going to be successful. And again, like everybody said throughout the day, we're here to make your program successful as well. Next slide, Alex. The next one goes to Lincoln County. Again, thank you for joining the LAP program. And as always, we're here to help make the program successful. And that will end my awards presentation for now. Back to you, Ms. Lillian.
Thank you, sir. And thank you all participants, not just the awardees, but special thanks to the awardees for all that you do and your participation in the LAP program. And we have come to our time for closing remarks. And so I think first up would be Neosha Lawhorn from FHWA.
I just wanted to say thank you to everyone who worked on the symposium, putting it together, Gdot and the Jacobs team, and thank you everyone for attending. Please, if you have feedback on things that we can do better or things that you would like to see, let us know, and we will work hard to make that happen. So thank you very much, everyone, for your time today. And I'll turn it over to Malik.
I just want to thank everyone for their participation today as well. We've come a long way with the LAP program. I want to thank Federal Highway in particular for really doing all they could to bring this information forward at this particular time in the development of the Gdot program, the local program. All the SMEs that have been able to participate today, and definitely the local public agencies. I think the local public agencies can go back and speak to their fellow cities and counties and say that there was a lot of good information exchange and that there are a lot of good things coming down the pipe in terms of the transportation funding, the new funding bill, as well as what is happening with the program as we're looking to go online with it very soon to make it very, very customer service and user friendly so that the certification process will not be a problem for the local public agencies. We thank you all, and we're looking forward to your feedback. Thank you.
Well, thank you all. I think it has been a very productive and informative day. I hope you feel the same because, by the way, you are the most important one that need to feel that way. And towards that end, we will be taking your opinions and feedback in a formal way, probably within the next week or 10 days or so. You will get a doodle poll where you'll be able to provide us some feedback on the symposium so that we know what we did good, what we could do better for the next time around. And at this point, I want to thank you all again and have a great day. And thank you for being part of the LEP program.